Okay, good evening. Welcome to our City Council meeting for Wednesday, April 23rd. We're going to get started with a Pledge of Allegiance tonight by Matt Basham.
Everybody could please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks.
All right, we'll move to item 4.2 on our agenda, City Council comments and recognitions. Anything from council tonight?
I just want to say thanks to our wonderful staff. We recognized our snowplow appreciation luncheon was today. It was pretty awesome up at the shops. I think the guys enjoyed it pretty much. And then it's Jackie's birthday this week. And yeah, we can all sing happy birthday to her or just say happy birthday.
It's happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Jackie.
We don't sing.
That's all, Mayor.
Okay, well, unfortunately, there's some bitter news tonight that we're going to share, but we get to celebrate 6 years of service. 5.5. For those of you that may not be aware, Councilmember Shields is moving from our community, unfortunately, has served diligently, has served honorably, has absolutely had a huge impact on this community in his 5.5 years of time. And tonight is his last meeting with us as he and his family, unfortunately, are headed to the Houston area for employment opportunities, and we will miss him. I've enjoyed working with him long before his service on council. I think I talked you into running, if I'm not. It's your fault. I think it's my fault, So known Steve long before that, and have enjoyed working with him for the last almost 4 years. So tonight we're going to recognize him. We're going to recognize his family. His family's here. Lindsay and the kids are here. You guys know me. I get way too emotional. So Steve, we just want to recognize you tonight. Council, do you want to say anything about?
It's a shame that Sherry's not here. Then we could gang up on him again one last time. But Steve and I have butted heads on a lot of things, and we've agreed on a lot of things, and over that 5.5 years we've gotten a lot done for this community. And as I've said before, and after every one of our conversations, whether we agree or disagree, the people sitting up here aren't supposed to just agree with each other. We're supposed to talk about things, we're supposed to debate things and see all points of view and try to find a way to compromise and find the right resolutions. And over that 5.5 years, we've done that a lot, and I think we've accomplished a lot for this city, and we couldn't have done it without you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd almost ditto what Jared said. I mean, there's times where you get frustrated in the content, but not of the person. And I think those discussions, albeit I've learned many new words, and most of them are 5 or 6 syllables, but I truly appreciate it. And yeah, I had to Google some words through our meetings sometimes.
Say those shorter ones you knew already.
Yeah. The 4-letter ones I knew
Right away. You knew all those ones before.
But yeah, I truly appreciate not only your serving here as a representative of the community, but as a friend and just a citizen in general. So thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Teddy.
We love you, brother. We got some stuff for you tonight. How do we want to do this? Because I don't want to step in front of the mic. Should we go up front? But can we be loud enough for the...
Can you?
Just turn the mic around. Oh, yeah, here you go. All go down? Yeah.
What is happening?
Come on up, Lindsay. Yes, all of you. Yep. So we've got Steve's family here. As you know, this, I think all of us know, this is not it's not just us. When we give up hours and hours away from our families. So we just want to say thank you. So first tonight, we have some flowers for Lindsay. Sorry, Duncan, we don't have flowers for you. Do you want flowers, Duncan? Yes. Okay, we have a street sign, an honorary street sign, Shield Street, representing his years of service to this community.
A lot smaller on top of the pole, but that's an official.
Wow.
Awesome.
Want to show that to the camera? Is it going in your room? You want to turn around and show that to the camera?
It's going to go to my new office.
Yep, turn around so everybody can see it. So we got Shield Street here.
That's awesome.
I love that.
That's way cool.
And we've got a plaque here,
Oh my
just showing your gratitude.
God. This is really cool, guys. Thank you.
This is a book. I would open it, but they really wrapped it tightly here. But this is a book of your time, so pictures and things about the city. So.
I looked through that. Shelley put that together. It's amazing. It emphasizes, I think it really highlights all the good things you've done in this community, all the memories you're going to take. A lot of rodeo pictures, let's just say that. Because we know that's what your family loves. Pictures of your family out and about. So just hope you remember your time here. No, we'll miss you around here, and we appreciate your service, but we wish you luck, your whole family luck in your next adventures. We know that's where God's taken you, unfortunately, at this time, but we'll miss you, but we wish you luck. So we love you guys. So go around. Shoot a picture.
The rodeo.
What's that? Oh, gosh.
Do you want to say anything? Yeah. Take a minute.
Man, I tried to write something down, and it was a disaster. It is an interesting thing to think back on a period of time, right? Time at a job, a time in a relationship, a time of service, and look back and realize all the amazing opportunities and events and experiences and people that were a part of that time. I know as I look back on my 5.5+ years serving the city of Herriman, it is filled with, I'm gonna hold it together, with a great appreciation for so many of the wonderful people that I've had the chance to associate with and to work with. It would be too long a list, and I don't want to leave anybody out. I am so proud of what we have accomplished in the past 5.5 years that I've been here. We navigated through some really tough times. COVID hit 45 days after I was in office. 6 weeks into my service, we lost Canine Officer Hondo. We have expanded the rodeo to 3 nights. We've done incredible things. We've annexed huge parcels of land into our city. We've rewritten and renegotiated massive development agreements and accomplished so much good for the city. When I came into office, I used the phrase that Herriman is not what it once was, but Herriman is not yet what it's going to be. And it is the engagement and activity and energy and passion of the residents of this city and those that want to serve that are going to help shape what this city becomes in the future. And just because things are entitled or laid out or there's agreements in place, if anything can be proven over the last 5 years is that those agreements can be reevaluated, new relationships can be grown, and there's opportunity to continue to improve and guide the future of Herriman, even though it seems like so much is already spoken for. So some of what we're going to be doing tonight is part of that. So I wish Sherry was here. One of the first things I told her when I started was how proud I was to be able to sit up on a dais with her. I'm so proud of her conviction. She's been a great example of speaking courageously, even when you're a minority on a point of view. Jared has taught me an incredible amount here in my time of service. I've never seen anybody spend so much time analyzing so many things and then so effectively communicating that analysis to the rest of us.
Saying that in a good way, Mayor.
Sorry.
That's a positive. And it's kind of interesting because there's so much agreement up here, and there are times when every single one of us have butted heads ferociously. And despite those strong differing opinions, I've never once doubted the commitment that all of the people in these chairs have to the betterment of this city. I know their hearts, and I know these are great people, and they have done, if you guys knew the hours they spend and the time that they have to do to make this happen, it's amazing. Teddy, I knew you long before you started out this. You were helping my family from the moment we moved into this house to just this day. So thank you for all that you've done. You're only a couple years in, but let's keep rolling, okay? Lauren, again, thank you for the time. We go back a couple years before this with some big activities, and yeah, you drug me in kicking and screaming. I would say this to the residents of Herriman. As you are discussing who is going to fill this seat after me, I hope that you find somebody that has a great passion for this city, that is coming to this position for the right reasons. And that right reason is to help serve the citizens and the residents of this city. They're not here to grind an axe or to have a very specific or narrow agenda, but they're here to do what's best for the city. To city staff, thank you. I don't know what else to say. Thank you for your hours of service, for the hard, incredible work that you guys do. I know that only the people up here realize the incredibly long hours. Just this last week trying to get this agenda together, I can't even imagine the hours that were spent. But thank you. Thank you to my family for their love and support and helping me, giving me the opportunity to serve here. And thank you to the residents of Herriman for the chance to serve you. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. I was weird to move on from that, but we'll move on to, right.
There only needs to be 3 of us, so, right.
Okay, so our next item on the agenda is public comment. And normally in council meetings, we just have one. So let me explain. We've got more people here than normal tonight. Normally we have one time for public comment for the whole thing. What we're going to do, we've tried to be this. We know this has been a big issue. There's been different areas. People have been affected different areas. So what we're going to do, we want to break this down. So let me kind of explain. If you look through the agenda, we're going to break this into kind of a few pieces. So if you want to comment on items 9.1 to 9.3, which is, that is the Sorrento. No, that is not. Yes. That is Sorrento. That is Sorrento. We're going to do so what we'll do is we'll do a presentation on Sorrento first. That's the one on 5600 South on 5600 West, 129th South in that area. We'll do a presentation, then we'll open up public comment at that time for that project, and then we will move forward and discuss and vote on those 3 items together. So that's when I want you to come forward at that point. If you're here, we'll do the same thing again for 9.4, if you need to comment on amendments to the Olympia MDA. That's 9.4. So again, we'll do a presentation, go to vote after that. Then we'll do the same thing for 9.5, which is the Creek Ridge change. So if you're in Creek Ridge, that's that change. So we'll do a presentation on 9.5, and then we'll public comment again for that item, and then we'll move into motion on that. And then same thing for 9.6 and 9.7 together. So I know this is, I just want to make sure we get this all right. So 9.6 and 9.7 that is also. So, okay, sorry, 9.5 through 9.7. We want to do all that together? No, sorry, Creek Ridge, okay. Are they kind of tied, though?
It's a different part. Mr. Mayor, I don't think it's overkill to just have that break in there between 9.5 and 9.6.
Okay.
And if somebody wants to comment there, and
Okay.
These are all tied together. So if anybody comments and it's in the wrong spot or out of order,
Then we'll be fine.
It's okay.
Okay.
We can
Okay,
take all
so
that.
9.5 is the Creek Ridge MDA. We're moving the concept is to reduce some commercial in some areas, move stuff around. But anyways, but then 9.6 to 9.7 is the one on, that's the Creek Ridge Park, I guess you could say.
Ridge Cove.
Creek Ridge Cove.
That's the actual general
That's
plan
the
and
actual-
zoning change.
That's
The zoning change
Hammerhead,
for that.
yeah.
Okay, and then 9.8 and 9.9 will be together. And we'll explain this as we get there, but just trying to break this out too. So 9.8 and 9.9 will also be together with one presentation and then one vote. That is the one off of 126 South, that little 11 lot. That's off that one. So that one's 9.8 and 9.9. So at this point, if you want any other general comments, or if you want to discuss 9.10 through 9.13, right now is when we'll open that public comment for that. And let me just read this, and this will apply to all the public comments, so just, this is kind of our requirements here. It says, audience members may bring any item within the city's purview to the city council's attention. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes. State law prohibits the council from acting on items that do not appear on the agenda. Public comments for this meeting will also be conducted electronically. Any person interested in addressing the council may submit a comment by emailing recorder@herriman.gov or by visiting herriman.gov/agendas and minutes, where there is a link to fill out an online public comment form. Your statement will be incorporated into the public record. So at this point, again, if you have a general comment or comment on 9.10 through 9.13, you can make that comment at this time. I do have one. Amanda, do you want to make yours now?
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council, our City Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Amanda Axelson. I am a small business owner and resident here in Herriman. I am a soccer coach for Avalanche West, and most importantly, I am a mom of 3 active and sports-loving little boys. I'm here to express my strong support for the proposed Southwest Athletic Complex, an investment I believe that will pay lasting dividends for Herriman's youth, families, and our economy. As a growing community, Herriman is full of young families and talented kids who are eager to participate in sports and outdoor activities. But right now, we simply don't have enough quality space to support them. The first year we moved to Herriman, we had my son, who was only 6 at the time, join a local soccer club. Throughout that year, we commuted to Bluffdale and then to Draper just to attend his training. This happens all the time. Local teams are often forced to travel to other cities just to find available quality space. Building the Southwest Athletic Complex isn't just about convenience, it's about creating opportunities. It's about giving our youth a safe, accessible place to develop not only their athletic skills, but also the values that come with sports: hard work, teamwork, accountability, and leadership. These are foundations of strong individuals and even more, strong communities. But this complex doesn't just benefit our kids, it benefits Herriman as a whole. With the right design and planning, the complex will be able to host regional tournaments and large-scale events that draw visitors from all over Utah and, honestly, across the nation. When those visitors come, they'll spend money at our restaurants, at future hotels I've been told will likely be built if the complex is approved, at our gas stations and our shops. That means more local sales tax revenue, which helps fund other critical services without increasing the tax burden on our residents. While no one wants more high-density housing, the project is well worth the trade-off and a smart investment in our future. Creating healthy outlets for youth supports local businesses and helps Herriman keep pace with the needs of a growing population. I encourage the council to seize this opportunity to build something that serves our city for decades to come. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amanda.
John, there was no volume ding on that, is there?
On the timer. Any other public comment at this time? I didn't want any form, so yeah, if you can just state your name for the record.
Harmon Butterfield. My concern is access coming out of my property, which is to the west of the development. The street that is proposed, I believe, is not going to be wide enough. That was my concern. And it's a lot of people. Thanks for your time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Harmon.
Mr. Butterfield, am I right? You had written us a comment speaking about some work trucks needing to get through there. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, I own Desert Star Transportation, which
Okay.
is the property just west of there.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was putting the name with the face, because
Yeah,
we'd seen
and
that
then,
comment.
so the road that you have proposed comes right up to my property, which I believe should be a commercial width road.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you for your comments. Appreciate that.
thank you. Okay, seeing no further comments at this time. Again, we'll come back to more as we go, so. Okay, we'll move on to item 6. We'll start with council reports with, should we start with, okay, we'll start with Jared.
Mine will be the longest this time for the first time ever. So you can do it in a different order.
Let's do it. Let's get it over with.
I'll still summarize it mostly. All right, so I'm our,
Analysis?
what's that?
Remember my comment about the analysis?
Concise. Well, I was gonna bring my whole big notebook and I condensed it to this for you. So the short version is that if any of you that are watching or here don't know, all of us represent the city on various other boards and committees. I represent us on the Unified Fire Authority Board. The short version is that we have the smallest increase that I've ever seen in my time on the council, which is what, 9.5 years at this point. This year's increase will be 2.67%, or $147,000 and change. So that's the short version. The long version, as many of the people in this room are aware, I've been working on reforming the finances of police and fire for my entire tenure, which resulted us, I'm the one that blew up UPD, sorry to put it that way. but got us out of there, kept our money here, empowered our people to do the good work that they're doing, and we still have some work to do there on planning for the future and how that's sustainable. Once we got that taken care of in 2018, I was then asked by our council and management team at the time to take over our representation on the UFA and UFSA boards. At that time, the taxing district and then the UFA, and they're two separate boards. It was quickly apparent that UFSA, the taxing district, was not a good place for our residents to be paying their taxes to, and have that board of 13 people, only one of which is a representative of Herriman, decide what's done with that money. I worked for a couple of years along with Councilmember Stewart from Riverton and negotiated our exit from UFSA taxing district, which now we have the Herriman Fire Safety Authority, so we keep that money here. We decide how we use that money, which is to contract for the actual fire services with UFA. UFA is just a service provider, right? We actually own and maintain the stations and the land they sit on. We pay UFA to man them and equip them and provide the service. So we look at the cost of that service, which is mainly manpower every year. Man, this really is the Reader's Digest version. Just separating from UFSA, in the last 2.5 years alone, that has saved our taxpayers over 30% in tax increases that UFSA has imposed on those property owners. By us getting out when we did, we have not increased that at all. We've kept that money in Herriman. In fact, we're just about ready to rebuild the station off Main Street under one of the parcels that we're talking about here, and we'll be paying cash for that. There's no bond, there's no financing. We're taking the money we saved from getting out of that taxing district and paying for it ourselves, keeping that money here to plan for it, all the while being able to pay for those services. Once we negotiated and it was a long, tough, talk about butting heads. I butted heads with a lot of other people around Salt Lake County to get us out of there, and on the terms that we did. Once we were separated and had control of those funds, then it was actually UFA, both the management and other board members, who approached me and asked me to chair the finance committee going forward. They recognized that a lot of the things that I and Councilmember Stewart in particular talked about, and some of the things that we were pushing for, made a lot of sense for the organization and wanted us to spearhead that. So here we are, another, probably 4 years after that. 4 years from that point, 2 years from my taking the chair from on the finance committee, and for the first time ever, I walked out of those committee meetings and a board meeting last week going, I actually am really happy with the budget. It really is the first time ever. To put it in perspective, just the last 2 years, the increases that we've seen just to provide the fire service was in 23-24 was 6.25%, or $300 and almost $10,000. 24-25 over 5%, $271,000 and change, to this year 2.67 and 147. So we've essentially cut that increase in half, mainly by reforming the way that they look at compensation and benefits. The way they were doing compensation was trying to catch up to others and then adding an arbitrary cost of living adjustment to it, which was resulting in these 6 and 7 and 8% increases. And then because we're the largest agency in Utah, then others were chasing us, and we were saying we were chasing them. And I and a few others kind of cut through all that and said, no, that just doesn't make sense when you're to reform the way that we're doing this. Now we're applying a 7-year rolling average COLA first. So there's no guesswork, there's no vote to be taken on it. We've instituted policy, we're gonna follow that 7-year rolling average. That's what's applied first, and then we compare to the market, as it were, and make an adjustment for that year, and then we do the same thing the following year. Rather than seeing that 6 to 7% increase in wages like we have the last 2 or 3 years in a row, we're seeing 3.6. And that's the majority of this. It's a $99 million budget. 81% of that is labor. It's a human-based service, and it's going to be, my mantra has been we need to find a sustainable way to have the best people, pay them appropriately. and maintain it, but having that high rate of increase, anything really above average inflation is not sustainable. You can maybe do it for a year or two, but when the revenue source is property tax, and we have to go back to property owners and say, hey, we need you to pay, in UFSA's case, 33% more over the course of 2.5 years, that's not very sustainable. I'm a financial planner. I don't know of any of my clients who have gotten that kind of increase over the last several years to pay those kinds of taxes. So believe it or not, that is a very short version of a very long journey I've been on the last 5 to 7 years to kind of reform some of our policies around funding and operation of some of our public safety. And those people are doing fantastic jobs. Everybody's in good shape. We just want to make sure that we can continue the financial model in a sustainable way. So I got more if you want it, but that's my summary. So I gave Kyle the good news. That's half the increase that they're expecting.
That's awesome.
And will really change the trajectory as we're looking to add new stations, et cetera, in the future. So.
Perfect. Thank you, Jared. That was not as bad as I thought.
I said I've got more. You just.
I appreciate it. No, appreciate your service on that, the work you're doing there. Teddy, have anything tonight?
Typically, I'd have my Jordan Basin Improvement District update, but it's conference week for all those auxiliary districts, and so our board meeting's next week. We did have a South Valley Chamber Board meeting this morning. Sherry is present, and we had a great time. We got to tour the new South Jordan Ballpark, the America First Ballpark. It is an amazing facility. If you get the opportunity to go see a game there, please go. Tickets start at $12 up to 120 plus if you want to get suites and all that fun stuff. But it is an amazing field. So go enjoy a ball game.
Perfect. Thank you, Teddy. Steve?
Nothing.
Okay, I don't have anything of substance to report tonight either. So we will move on to item 8, the consent agenda. Look for a motion.
I already told the mayor. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Jared. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes, with a comment.
Okay, and I'll vote yes. The motion carries. Steve?
Just in regards to 8.1, again, it's another example of where we're picking and choosing which proclamations we make and which ones we won't. I just hope that in a future agenda item, I think it's already been requested, that you guys will have a vigorous discussion about that and find opportunities to make proclamations in support of and in service of great causes like this. So.
Noted. Thank you. Okay, so that consent agenda is approved. Okay, we will now go into the bulk of the meeting tonight. So here's, again, we'll kind of go over this. We're going to do a presentation here on 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3. Then we'll have public comment, and then we'll close that public comment and then vote and go through each item, have 3 different votes on the 3 items. So we'll start with the presentation, and then we'll open public comment with the same 2-minute requirement as before.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. As we know, this has been a lot of work, and we look forward to this meeting and your decision on these items. This first item is often been referred to as the Walker property. It's property that the city owns, and we have been exploring an opportunity to potentially surplus or trade this property for equivalent property elsewhere within the city. In doing so, we've been exploring a potential general plan amendment, which would facilitate residential development, zoning amendment, and then also a development agreement on that property. Those are the 3 legislative items before you on this project. As you know, again, this is part of a larger, what we've been calling kind of like a property swap or an exchange in order to acquire a large 56 contiguous parcel for potential athletic complex or some other type of public use, park space, whatever it is that the city decides is the most appropriate use of that property. Of course, we've been thinking park or open space, some type of a recreational amenity for the city. Also critical to say that we've been trying to do all of this without any cash out of pocket as a city. We were trying to negotiate equivalent terms, equivalent values. This is the area of that property in question tonight on these items. As the council knows, we have done a series of community meetings earlier in the year. We also had a planning commission public hearing where we sent notices. That planning commission meeting was on March 21st. The property specifics are 18.05 acres, currently zoned, or general plan as civic and community. This is where we had, for a while, been contemplating doing a future public works yard. And the zoning is A143, and again, we own the property. So this first proposal is to change that general plan from civic and community to residential 2, again, to facilitate a potential residential development on this property. The zoning ordinance of the city has certain standards of review that we consider, that the council considers when making these decisions. But as you know, state law allows a lot of latitude for cities in making this decision. It really is ultimately a decision of the city council. But these are the standards that are listed in our city code. The zoning amendment is also another item where we have a lot of latitude under state law and city law. This proposal was 8143 zone to an R210 zone. Often we see mixed residential types in the R210 zone. It can be attached housing, but in this project we have been talking about more recently single-family detached homes in this property. Again, we have a series of findings that the Planning Commission made when they heard this item, saying that the proposal would be consistent with the amended general plan. It would be harmonious with existing character around it. And the staff did not find any adverse effects, and it did have adequate services. We also recommended a zoning condition of 113 dwelling units. Again, that's from the staff. We were identifying that let's go ahead and put a zoning condition so that we make sure that we cap the number of units associated with this project on the zoning amendment itself. The third component is this MDA, which again locks in that 113 dwelling units. You can see the density across the property is 6.26 acres. One of the proposals from the development partner in this project is to have a mix of lot sizes and to also have existing single-family homes where that's built on the periphery to have the largest lots on the inside of this Sorrento MDA. So we're trying to be compatible with existing development. We also have 2 points of access from Rosecrest Road, and then we're providing additional points of access to the west for future development. And that is consistent with city code. Whenever we have a development adjacent to undeveloped property, we want to make sure we're not landlocking anybody, and we provide a street stub, a street connection.
Hey, Michael,
Yes,
real
please.
quick on that one.
Yes.
As Mr. Butterfield spoke earlier about it, this is a private HOA, private roads, and so they're shorter or smaller cross sections than our public roads. How does that affect the building to the west?
Now, there's been a lot of discussion on these projects, so I want to make sure I'm up to date on this, but the streets that run essentially vertically on this map, so east to west, those will be public.
Correct, with
Yeah.
a 53-foot cross-section,
Okay.
which is 28 feet of asphalt. So if you think of typical lanes are 10.5 to 12 feet wide, it'd probably be wise to no park one side of this for the section when the trucking company would connect to that.
And this is curb and gutter and sidewalk?
This is
Yes.
curb, gutter, sidewalk, and park strip, yes.
Yep.
Standard cross-section.
Yeah, the streets that run generally north-south, those are the private ones. And I believe engineering has looked at that issue as far as capacity for future adjacent growth.
So this development would have the number of lots. The traffic study that would be done for it would be the lowest level traffic study for the city, which would look at basically the intersection to make sure the width would allow for proper turning movements. I think for engineering's larger concern would be the pavement section, if it can handle the heavier
Of
traffic.
the traffic load, yeah.
Because each truck counts as several vehicles. So if you're having a bunch of passings, you're gonna want a heavier pavement section there.
And plus the weight requirements.
And yeah, the no parking would probably be the way, so that you could have the width for the truck to pass by. And if a car was coming the other way, you wouldn't have a conflict there where someone would have to stop. Trucks are a lot harder to stop.
Yep, okay. Thank you.
As noted in this slide, and as you know in the packet, the developer is proposing design standards that are similar to ones that we've approved for Olympia, another large master development agreement area in our city. And then it will also maintain our standard kind of street improvements along Rosecrest Road. One of the things to be aware of in this is that the Planning Commission had also recommended as part of the MDA that the developer could produce or include pedestrian connections through these two corner kind of open space areas going from the interior of the project out to Rosecrest Road. And the developer said that they were amenable to providing that pedestrian connection. Again, the MDA is essentially a type of, it is an agreement between the city and the developer, but it also just functions almost like a zoning code. It addresses building architecture, setbacks, and in this will also include this illustration as a conceptual layout for this project. And the subdivision would be reviewed administratively with compliance to these MDA standards if approved by the City Council. Now, the Planning Commission, upon having their public hearing, they did vote 4-2 to recommend to the City Council approval of the general plan amendment. On the zoning map amendment, they actually had voted a denial. There was concern expressed by the public on the density. There was concern that the R2 zone implied attached housing. And ultimately, the Planning Commission didn't feel like they could find some middle ground to make a positive recommendation with an alternative to the City Council. However, following that denial on the rezone, they did recommend approval of the MDA with a 4-2 approval, and then they made a comment recommending that the City Council try and work through, we're comfortable with many elements that are contained within this MDA proposal, but we're not really comfortable with the R210 zoning district. And so, as we discussed previously in our work meeting, and that the City Council has the ability to consider another type of zone that is less intense than what was advertised in the public hearing, which was the R210. So, for example, you could potentially consider an R110 for this property, a single-family zone. With that, those are the three legislative items that are before the City Council at this time. My role is to speak to the process, if you have any questions about kind of the process on that. As you know, some of these applications are the city is the applicant, and I believe Blake or Wendy may speak on behalf of the city as the applicant. And then, of course, Ryan Button is here representing the developer's interest with the MDA itself.
Okay, any questions at this time? Okay. We will go ahead and, again, so public comment on, this is on that property only. So if you have public comment at this time, you have 2 minutes. I don't have any comment forms yet, so if you'd like to make a comment on this property, feel free to come forward.
I just wanted to, Herriman Blvd, just wanted to talk about the road width, you know, in more detail, where it's coming into already zoned commercial property. What allowance would there be for that? And it's not necessarily the ideal place to run a truck through a high-density housing, but we were, a few years ago, you know, when you were planning on putting the Public Works Department there, we thought that was a good plan for that. I mean, it would be similar type of use for the Walker property compared to what is west of us. And I don't know if people know, but you got 40 acres of contaminated, actually there's, all total, there's about 60 acres of contaminated property there between the landowners of the city's Walker property and our various families' former farm ground property. But I don't know how comfortable people would be moving into high-density area with lead and arsenic next by. But our biggest concern is literally the width of the road. I don't think the width of the road, the way it is proposed, is nearly wide enough. So I just wanted to express my concern there. I appreciate your time and everybody's dedication, especially Steve. You're a fine young man.
Thank you, sir.
He hasn't been called young for a few minutes.
I appreciate it when it happens.
Oh, and one other thing. I don't think anybody's, I'm not against, you know, the park facility or anything. It's just that I understand the density and why the density has to be where it is for the cleanup fees and stuff. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harmon. Okay, see no other comment at this time. We'll, I guess, go to discussion amongst council on 9.1. We'll start with 9.1. Look for any discussion. This is on general plan.
If it's all right, I'll just maybe respond to the public comment on that one. Just a couple of maybe points of clarification. So this area that we're looking at is not going into any already zoned commercial area. In fact, the area that Mr. Butterfield is referring to is farther down the road. It's not connecting to this at all. Potentially in the future it could. And then the comment that it would be going into an already zoned commercial. Your property is actually not zoned commercial. It's zoned A143. You're being allowed to operate that business because the county allowed it before Herriman was incorporated.
I think specifically that property I'm looking at is mixed use. So again, I think this is about like 2004 or something when some of this was going on, and the records back then.
Sorry, I'm looking at, I had Todd look it up. We're looking at two different ones. Right. The one directly adjoining it that is owned by Butterfield is A143, and then there's a second one that's probably being referred to that's being operated for the business.
Correct. I'm just looking at the zoning map. So I'm looking at the city's zoning map. But
so just
it's not
just a couple
commercial.
Yeah, just a couple points of clarification for the public, right? That's not, while it's conceivably possible that that scenario plays out the way you described, that's not what it is now, and I can't speak for anyone else, but definitely would not be something I'd be in favor of. And as far as the width of the road, I would leave that to our engineers that have spoken to that. Those are the only comments I have about that part, Mayor.
Any other comments on the general plan?
I'm just curious, if the Public Works would have been there, there would be no access across that property out to 56 West, right?
Correct.
If that would have been proposed, like,
There
right?
actually was a road proposed, but not in those locations.
Oh,
It was much farther north.
farther north. Okay, got it.
That's the road that split the properties.
Yeah, I hate having to try and landlock anybody. Is there another, I mean, there's no roads there now. How is the property being accessed, and are those roads sufficient for?
It accesses through the existing historic roads there, so I can't remember, is it 59?
The soft-shouldered wide roads over
59,
there, yeah, got
west,
it.
And,
Okay.
and just as a side note, we don't have truck routes in our city, so trucks are allowed on 53-foot roads already in our city, so it isn't that they wouldn't be allowed there too, so just.
Not ideal, but they wouldn't be prohibited.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
not ideal. Where the park strip and things are there, that's why we're looking at no parking when that does connect.
Okay.
To allow for the width.
Do we ever, to maybe put an exclamation point on the idea, at least in my time, I've never seen it, do we ever require other property owners to pay to widen a road to accommodate a use that could be attached in the future?
No, but the only time we ever require that is if it's on a system road, and then the city would pay with impact fees, but this isn't a system road, so it wouldn't qualify as that, so I haven't seen us do anything like that since I've worked here.
Sorry.
No, we're redoing our park in our HOA, and we have 27-foot asphalt, I think. It's reduced, curb sidewalk one side, no parking after hours, but, I mean, yeah, it's not great or ideal for truck traffic, but we just had 53-foot trucks in there today, like 3 or 4 of them offloading. So it's doable, it's just not ideal. So even if in the future, if this was, just turning on to 5600 West would be the critical point, as it's already pretty busy. But maybe then that's when traffic signaled at that point, so.
Good on the general plan?
Yeah, let's look for motion on the general plan then, yeah.
So for the public, there's 3 of these. This first one is the general plan amendment. I'll make a motion to approve resolution numbers R22-2025, amending the general plan, future land use map for 18.05 acres of property located at 5616 West, 12900 South, from civic and community to residential 2, conditioned upon the approvals of items 9.1 through 9.10 and 9.13.
Do we
Can
need to
I-
make the adjustment to R1?
We were going to go to R1, residential 1.
Yeah, so.
One with the,
That's in the.
That's the zone.
Yeah.
This is just general
okay.
plan.
Okay,
the next one, yeah.
okay. So I'll let that motion stand. Motion by Jared then.
Second?
Oh, it's residential. Okay, I know where we're at. Okay. Second by Teddy. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, that motion carries. Okay, look for a motion on the zoning then, unless there's further discussion.
R110.
Yeah, the condition on 9.2, the zoning map for Sorrento, the condition would, that we propose is that the base zoning regulation will be R110, not 2110, and that zoning will be subordinate to the master development agreement that has different or conflicting regulations.
Yeah, actually, that's better than that, huh? 'Cause that would go with it. Okay. All right, let's make a motion to approve ordinance number 2025-07, amending the Herriman City official zoning map for 18.05 acres from A143 agricultural single-family zone to R110 residential zone located at 5616 West, 12900 South, conditioned upon the approvals of items 9.1 through 9.10 and 9.13. What was that last part again?
That the base zoning shall be R110, not 2110, and the base zone will be subordinate to the master development agreement that has different or conflicting regulations.
That.
Second.
Motion by Jared, second by Steve. I'll go Steve,
Yes.
Teddy.
Yes with a comment?
Okay, Jared?
Yes.
I'll vote yes, that motion will carry. Teddy, to you for a comment?
So I believe that took care of the planning and zoning's concern about the zone. So it's restricted to 110, R110, and then depending on the MDA requirements that are coming later in this meeting, so.
To maybe just put a finer point on that, or full explanation for the public, those that are here and those that are probably watching as well. The R110 is a stricter requirement, right? So it'd be one lot per 10,000 square feet.
Approximately quarter acre lots.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're overlapping that with an MDA that will allow slightly more, the 113, rather than the R210, which essentially allows more and restricting it. we're going to do a lower base zone and allow a little bit more. That way, if the MDA for some reason doesn't come to fruition, then the base zone that's more restrictive would apply. So just to be a little bit safer that way.
Fail safe.
Hopefully that explains it. Right, and then MDA,
Look for one on the MDA then.
this is where we're gonna need you more.
Just a comment on 9.3, as this is the master development agreement, I think that based on Blake's comment about the parking on one side should the road connect, is that something we can include in the MDA? I don't know if that's something we would do in our,
Going to come quite a bit later.
Yeah.
So I'd probably leave it out of the MDA at this point. The city will do it through the traffic committee.
okay, fair enough.
Those will end up being public roads anyway.
Fair enough, yep, it's great, because those will be public, yeah.
Yeah,
Hold on,
Subject to
Ryan.
Public comment, yep.
Okay, Ryan would like to, Ryan, go ahead.
go through those changes first. So I just asked the attorney,
Sorry.
Am I okay to go?
yeah, go ahead.
Just two things. One, yeah, the road, it's a public road, so you guys will be able to make that determination down the road. That's not really an MDA issue because it's.
Totally
you guys
got
have
it, yeah.
Total control of the road. The only thing I was gonna ask is on this one, to Todd's motion that he assisted you with on the last one, just
My
make
motion
sure-
he assisted me with.
Sorry. Just make sure we had the latitude to fix that in the MDA, because we didn't put like specific square footages or anything in there. So we just need that latitude to work with Todd to, we know the intent, but we just need to be able to add that.
Square footages, yep.
Yeah.
That's one thing that
The lot width.
we didn't do in those first two motions, but we need to start
It's in,
doing.
it's in the MDA.
Yep.
No, the ability to,
Make,
that all of these are gonna be subject to a final review by attorney and city administration before.
yeah, for the MDAs, each of those MDAs.
Not the GP or the zoning.
I understand, okay. got
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I have that in my list of conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyway, so just lot width, and then make sure we can, address that, because if you're, the adjustment to R110 now, I just gotta make sure I don't need 10,000 square foot lots.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So I asked the attorney if he'll kind of summarize some of those adjustments that we're making to the MDA that's in the packet.
And to clarify, in the packet is, we made some revisions and removed several sections. So you'll see in like section 2.8, it'll just say reserved. So that's the MDA that we're referring to, and that's gonna be in each MDA that we discuss. So that's the MDA we're basing these changes on. So the conditions would be changes to the MDA would include staff recommendations in the staff report with the following revisions. 3A, to only require side yard setbacks to comply with the underlying zoning. 3D, to be modified and clarified that the contrasting color for window trim be an element of the home's design. The next one is the landscaping section in the MDA be modified to require landscaping to be installed within 9 months of a certificate of occupancy, and that these regulations be in the CCNRs and enforced by the HOA. The lot frontage shall generally follow the submitted concept plan and shall not be less than 40 feet. Density shall not exceed 113 lots or 6.26 acres. The reason why I'm including the 6.26 acres is, for the next point, is if any properties are used for churches or schools, the lots will be proportionally reduced by the amount of acres used for those churches or schools. And that the changes made to the MDA will be reviewed and approved by the city manager and city attorney.
Good. Then I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2.
All right, one more thing. I just want to make sure, I don't know where you're at on the telecommunications, because I have it in mind and you have it out of yours, so.
It would be out unless the council decides otherwise.
I'm requesting that the council let that stay in. So we like to do that. It's a benefit and amenity to the HOA.
Yeah, I did just, as pushed Ryan before the meeting, the thinking behind it is that they'll be able to with full participation of all the residents under the HOA, negotiate bulk savings and provide internet service to the residents. That's going to be included as part of their HOA fee, that service. However, that does not prohibit them from being able to go out and get service from another provider above and beyond that if they choose. So that ability to pursue competitive offerings is still available. The other option is when the HOA is fully taken over by the residents, they have the ability to vote that any way they want. So my concern about that being anti-competitive or something, I don't have that concern anymore.
That's not the way I read the provision that they included. The provision would be they would have a private telecommunication easement that goes around the property, that any telecommunication provider would need to get consent from the easement holder, i.e. the developer, in order to provide services to the home. So they could restrict any other telecommunication provider from coming in and providing services.
Okay, then I guess I would say that I'm supportive of leaving it in if those issues could be addressed.
Well,
just so
again,
that it's not prohibitive to other.
The issue we have is that if you open it wide up, then you end up with 5 telecommunication boxes on a 40-foot wide lot. So it just turns into a huge mess. Obviously, there's Starlink, there's Verizon, there are wireless options as well. And so anyway, that's been the concern, and that's what we're seeking. So that's what we request to leave it in. So, and I think, we have that in Olympia. We just are having the first people move in, and it's been great so far. We've been able to work together and add a note to the plat to clarify that. Anyway, my request is that we could leave it in. It's the verbatim language that we have in the Olympia MDA that is actively operating this way. So, but obviously that's the council's decision. So.
Right, and one quick question on that. We asked this question in work meeting, but just again here for the 3 different communities, if you will.
Yeah.
They are separate HOAs. They're not under a master HOA.
Correct. Yep, 3 totally independent, separate HOAs.
I mean, the reason I asked that question is if that's the case, they're much smaller. And if once they take ownership of the HOA and they choose to do it differently, they absolutely could. If they were under the master HOA of Olympia Hills, then good luck, getting out of that and changing it.
Day breaks like that too. But the easement doesn't go away though, right?
But does it turn over to HOA or?
Yeah, the easement's in perpetuity.
Okay. I know I'm the only one here that lives in an HOA, I assume, on council. So I've got the Comcast box, and then I got a CenturyLink box, telephone, and then my power. And we live on small lots. So I see the burden there, obviously, but I know that it was like a 5-year agreement at the beginning of the HOA, and then it rolled off, and then it was HOA board decision, and I don't know if there's an easement. So maybe that's the language that needs to be adjusted.
Is there a way to do it to where the easement rolls off after the residents take over?
We could probably work on some language if that's what the council decides.
I mean, because I do think it's a better buy value to, I mean, I know what they do with the apartment complexes and other townhomes and other options like that, and I see the benefit.
Yeah, would that be objectionable if we had something like that?
No, I'm okay with that. Yeah, we can do that. The only thing is those fiber companies, for them to come pull in, they need a certain number of years.
Yeah.
Right? So like on 11 lots, it probably can't be when those are done. We'd have to come up with some sort of a time period, but something reasonable, maybe 5 years or something. I just would need to work on that and figure out what that number would be, but not indefinitely. I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with,
Look, this goes back to our discussion, right? Is how do you get service providers to provide high-speed fiber there?
You go in there first.
And if you have 100% mandatory take rate, and that means that's going to bring the fiber in, that's great. If that can sunset at some point to allow for competitive offerings, that's really where my concern lies.
Yeah.
I don't want something that forever locks out competition. So if we can find out what a reasonable sunset clause on that is, and then the HOA board at a future time can make changes, then I'd support leaving that in.
So purposes of tonight, right, would be we need actual language. So I'm open to suggestions, but something like 5 years from the time the HOA is turned over to the residents.
Or under a specific agreement come to with the telecoms? Or,
So they need some sort of time period, right? So
Yeah,
from
I
the
just-
time the final home is purchased and the HOA is turned over to the residents, then they need a time period from that.
Right.
So I think the question is, who holds the easement?
Yeah, the telecommunication company, the fiber company
So,
would probably hold that. We'd have to kind of work through that there.
yeah, because I think if it's the HOA holding it or the developer, that's different than once you give it to the private telecom company. I don't know what mechanism makes them give that up unless there's a time limit in there.
Yeah.
And I think that's a concern. Once one company has it, if there's no way to get them out, they own it forever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if we can just say something like 5 to 7 years, and let me just work that out with them. If something like that would be okay, that would be great. At the time of turnover, or from the time of turnover.
at final C of O?
When is,
Well, once we turn it over to the HOA.
Okay.
From that time. would be
when
fine.
is turnover of HOA at 80% or something?
No, we do it at completion of the project, at build out.
Okay. I would say more along the lines of 80%, because sometimes the last remaining lots, depending on the economy at the time, can take
Yeah,
years
I
to
think the
build.
time should start at to your
Okay.
point, at like an 80% completion.
Okay, we won't turn over at 80, but we'll start the time at 80.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
80%.
Well, you need it 100% to fund, so it's, yeah.
So,
Motions.
so this is that the easement would turn over to the HOA?
No, that the easement would expire.
Would expire.
Would expire.
Easement would
Or turn over to the HOA. I mean, either way, it's the same mechanism, I
Okay.
guess, right? It puts the homeowners
Expires
in
better.
control.
I'll let you and Todd work that out.
Because that way on the plat map, we can, because in Olympia, they do have a private telecommunication easement around each of the lots. And we work through language that gives some exceptions for other utility companies and the city, so we don't have to get permission from the telecommunication company to, for example, give water to the home or power or gas or anything like that. So on the plat, we could put a note that this expires, I don't know what that, we would have to have some type of notice that's filed on each property. It's just, maybe we come up with a date on the plat or something.
Yeah, or we'll put a
Because the
note.
MDA is only 10 years anyway.
Yeah.
So
What if we just
Maybe it
said
sunsets
at
at
the
the same
expiration
time?
of the MDA? Because I think all of them are 10 years, and that gives you a few years to build out, and that gives
What's the
it,
trigger point of the start of the MDA and the close of the MDA? Is it on
once it's
approval?
recorded.
Yeah, the day we sign it.
The
yeah.
recording date of the MDA is what starts
Well,
it.
then, yeah, then,
I'm fine with that.
then if you're built out in 3 years, it's 7 years, it's, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
So
the
do we
best
even
way
need
to
a,
go.
if the MDA expires in 10 years, we don't even need a,
No, but it was the
No,
plat.
we still need the expiring
Because
of
the
the
We
easement
still
on
need
the
to-
plat.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
That's good, that gives us a recorded document to
And it's
bake to-
fiber, that's what we've promised our residents is fiber, so it's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's a good compromise.
Yep.
And then, oh, yeah, we got it.
You got all that, Jared?
I think so.
He's penciling out.
So I volunteer somewhat to do this because I'm sitting next to the attorney and can easily correct me as we go, or I can ask for help. So if I just reference what you said and add that the discussed telecoms will expire concurrently with the MDA. Okay. Motion to approve ordinance number 2025-08, approving the Sorrento Master Development Agreement for 18.05 acres of property located at 5616 West, 12900 South, conditioned upon the approvals of items 9.1 through 9.10 and 9.13, including all of the recommendations made by staff with the exceptions noted by the city attorney, as well as the discussed telecom easement that would expire concurrently with the NDA.
Wow, that's a Steve word.
Love you too, Laura.
Second.
Motion by Jared, second by Teddy. Jared,
Yes.
Teddy,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes on that as well.
Is that 4 syllables?
Okay. 3.5 feet. It's 4. Okay, we'll move on to 9.4. So this item is a standalone, so we will do presentation on this, public comment, then a vote on this item only.
Mayor?
Yes.
His presentation is actually covering all 3 of those items. He just informed us.
Oh, 4, 5, and 6?
This
Oh,
is the Olympia.
Never mind.
I know, we,
5, 6, and 7 are all going to be together.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
And this item, the applicant is again Ryan Button, representing the Olympia development. Have this presentation come up quickly. So again, in order to accommodate this larger effort to potentially exchange properties of equal value, there was a request from our development partner to make some modifications within the Olympia MDA in the northwest quadrant of our city. This is the general area of that project. Again, this is to accommodate these property swaps. We had a number of community meetings on this. Some of the meetings where we tried to focus comments, we would still get comments on other parts. So we repeatedly would have conversations with the residents about these different changes. We had a public hearing on this item on March 21st, and we mailed out 253 public notices. This is a closer outline of that project area. It's interesting in that it has a unique zone type. It's the large project master plan community. In addition to that specific zone, it also has the MDA that we administrate. As you can see kind of outlined here in these tight red and blue lines, the developer is building out this project starting from the east side. We've seen a lot of, because there's been a public infrastructure financing district here, we've seen a lot of roads built very quickly in this area. There's a number of amendments that have been outlined in your staff report that we've talked about. One of the key ones we frequently have mentioned this K Park. And as you can see in this map, this is actually a boundary line, this black line that separates the Hidden Oaks MDA to the south and the Olympia MDA to the north. The Hidden Oaks project includes this K Park, just simply labeled K on the map. That's the only reason why it's called K Park. And then the concept was to extend the size of that park into Olympia by matching up another park dedication. But in this request, the amendment is to remove that obligation to build this park space within Olympia, partly because one of the requests, as you know, is a request to increase the number of units in Olympia by approximately 100, well, it's 150 units maximum. And so there was looking at some opportunities within the project where we could potentially put more residential. When the Planning Commission reviewed this, they had made a recommendation that's outlined in your staff report that where this area 25 would potentially be changed to residential use, Commission was still trying to see if there was an opportunity to create any kind of pedestrian connection, some type of walkway to help residents get down to the K Park, the future K Park in Hidden Oaks. So that's one of the recommendations from the Planning Commission. This is the amended land use plan for Olympia, and you can see here in the red that the master developer has submitted that amended land use plan that we had as a condition of approval. And they've taken away that green area, now given it that tan neighborhood district. I won't go through all of these in detail. Again, this is the amendment to the open space. The addition of those 150 additional units still has a maximum. And you can see it's approximately 2.4% increase. I think elsewhere the staff report said 3. It was just really rounded, but more accurately it is 2.4%. And then there was also a request from the developer to remove obligations for those off-site impacts. There's an obligation to try and mitigate some of those transportation impacts that we had projected when the city had reviewed and approved the Olympia MDA. As the council is aware, the city and our development partner have been actively pursuing regional and state funding opportunities for some of these major corridor improvements. And I don't know if Blake wants to speak to any of those items, but that is the request from the developer saying, we believe we are meeting the intent of this agreement through the commitment or the pursuit of these funds from other transportation planning sources.
I mean, if I could speak to that, we kind of estimated the original amount would be 13 to 15 million, where I will say that since I've taken office, there's been over $100 million secured for this area. So far, have exceeded anything that we could have asked for from them. So I think that's where that's coming from, so.
Yeah, I've been one of the most critical, right? I'll add that, I mean, that's a somewhat high number, including a lot of things. As I analyze things to death and boil it down, there's probably at least double that 13 to 15 million that they've secured to help us out with our own obligations, let alone theirs, with infrastructure directly around this area. So, yeah, I think that it's fair to say they've more than satisfied that.
As stated, the findings that we did not have any particular zoning concerns. Engineering also did not identify any concerns with these amendments. This is the one recommendation from Planning Commission to the City Council. Again, just trying to look for a way to connect people to that park in Hidden Oaks, adjacent to the project. And this received a 4-3 recommendation for approval from the Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Any questions from Michael at this time?
Again, just as a reminder, the applicant has the opportunity to address you if he desires, right? So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Ryan?
Just my one comment on this would be on this pedestrian access, because we don't know what our use will be adjacent to that, and we also don't know what will actually happen with the K Park. We're all for trails. Olympia is full of trails. I'm a little concerned. We definitely have a trail corridor along 7300 West, which is adjacent to K Park already. So I don't know what the city will develop K Park into, and if it will even make sense. I know at one point, well, I don't know. I don't know what you're going to develop that as. That's something that's a city-driven project, not a developer project for Hidden Oaks, is my understanding. And so it may or may not even be a compatible thing to shove a sidewalk from us into that. If it was a baseball diamond or something, right? So that's my only concern, is about that requirement or that recommendation from the Planning Commission. You look, it's not very far at all to go down to our trail system on 7300 West. So that would be my one request, is we don't include that from Planning Commission.
Is the concern how Hidden Oaks Hidden Oaks is not, typically I'm all for making the developer do stuff, but I'm looking at this, that's not really his to do. Hidden Oaks is a separate MDA, different builder, different plan. That park will be there. If their concern, unless that was misstated, if they're concerned about is how do people who are just south of that park access that park, I think that's a city and that developer, the other developer discussion, and not necessarily this one. But I just want to be clear that that's what we're talking about.
I think they wanted a trail coming out of Olympia and stubbing into the K Park. But again, I don't know how the city will choose to develop the K Park, and if you even will. I mean, obviously things change, and so anyway, that was my concern about that.
And I'll just say, I get what the Plan Commission was probably getting at, but again, that's kind of we've talked about that. That's kind of a financial obligation they're trying to put on us. We'll decide that. That's a cost that is added on the city, so I'm not comfortable putting that. That's an obligation on the city, not really.
Well, I think I understand kind of the intent of where they're coming from, but I mean, mechanically, it doesn't necessarily work that way. The reality is that will be a public park, right? So it will be open, and as a developer, whoever you sell it to, et cetera, that makes sense to have that as an open plan. I'm sure they'll take advantage of that. If they don't, then that's still a public park that is accessible to everybody, so.
Yeah, if it's compatible and whatnot, we're all for it. We're all for the connectivity on that.
Yeah, and I agree with these guys. It's obviously we would love to put obligations on people, but where it's our obligations to do that, and if it makes sense for your development to tie into that, I don't think that you'll be opposed to that. And if the amenities are there that benefit both sides, and I know the trails through your system are pretty intense. They're actually outside, not intense, but there's another joke for you. But so I know that you're a willing partner, that if it matches up and those cross-sections and those accessibilities, so.
Any other questions for me?
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Michael. At this point, we will open the public comment on this item, on item 9.4 only. Okay, seeing no comment on this item, I'll look to the council for a motion then, or other
I
further
can do
comment.
this one, it's easy.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2025-09, approving the third amendment to the Olympia Project Master Development Agreement located at approximately 12420 South, 6400 West, conditioned upon the approvals of the items 9.1 through 9.10 and 9.13.
Okay, motion by Teddy,
Can I amend that motion to include the language about administration and attorney just reviewing all of the things that we've talked about?
I'll accept a substitute motion.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine.
Okay.
Do you want that restated, Jackie? I'll make a substitute motion to approve ordinance number 2025-09, approving the third amendment to the Olympia Project Master Development Agreement located at approximately 12420 South, 6400 West, conditioned upon the approvals of item 9.1 through 9.10 and 9.13, with additional oversight from the city manager and attorney.
Good with that? Okay, motion by Teddy.
I second that.
Second to the substitute by Steve. Steve?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. That motion carries. Okay, now we will go to 9.5, 9.6, and 9.7. So we're going to end up, that's a change from beginning. We missed that. So this will be a presentation on 9.5, 9.6, and 9.7. So we'll have presentation, comments, votes on these three items. So.
Thank you. And again, these are all relative to development that we refer to as Creek Ridge. It's under a master development agreement. It is existing. The first item is an amendment to that agreement. The second one is a general plan amendment to the property that is potentially being removed from the Creek Ridge Development Agreement. And then a review and consideration of a new master development agreement for that parcel. And we'll look at that in detail. One thing to keep in mind, as if everything else is so crystal clear, this is property that is owned currently by Land Reserve, Inc. It is property that in the Creek Ridge MDA, there's an obligation to dedicate property to the city for potential open space. Land Reserve, Inc. has submitted a owner's affidavit to the city and has authorized Wendy Thomas to represent their interest in this meeting tonight. That's common when we have a property owner and a third-party interested potential like buyer or developer of that property. So we have that on file. Land Reserve, as I understand, is not in this meeting tonight, but Wendy's been authorized to essentially speak on their behalf. So, okay, so with that said, this is the area of that project. As you can see, much of this MDA is still vacant. It's just south of 118th. This is a little close-up of not the whole MDA, of course, but just the property in question that we've been looking at potentially removing from the Creek Ridge MDA. Again, we've had a series of community meetings. We had a public hearing notice for March 21st, but there was a request to continue that item. The Planning Commission opened the hearing, continued the hearing, and was rescheduled for April 2nd. Or excuse me, it was April 16th is when we had that hearing. We sent out 397 postcards just based on our standard mailing radius. This is for the community meeting. We sent out postcards for both the community meeting and the Planning Commission. We had 38 individuals sign in and we received a number of comments during the meeting. Just going to quickly go through some of those concerns. We've heard that Creek Ridge property owners, of course, were informed that this would be a park according to the MDA. Residents had stated that they had paid more who were adjacent to that future park because of their proximity. Residents had mentioned that they would prefer even a passive park or potentially open space versus use of or access to an athletic complex. Some mentioned that they would prefer a buffer if this was going to be residential development. Potentially, they would still like to have some kind of buffer or open space or park or trail, something that separates Copperfields in Creek Ridge right now. The Copperfields project from the future Creek Ridge Cove. Residents also expressed the potential light and noise and things that might come from the SWAC property potentially. Impacts caused by blocked views from development of what they thought was going to be open space. So again, here's that property in the middle, this open space on the current MDA amendment. And this is approximate. This is a little bit larger in the area that we're talking about relocating out of the MDA. But the request is essentially to remove that legal description from the Creek Ridge MDA. Within the MDA amendment, these agreements, again, are by law equivalent to essentially a zoning process, a zoning amendment. We process them just like we would do a zoning change in the city. These amendments are anticipated within these agreements. Every MDA we have, there's a clause in the MDA that talks about potential amendments. How do we consider amendments? What is the process for amendments? What might be minor? What might be administrative versus what has to come to the city council? These MDAs always have a long development span. Many of them are large, and we understand that markets change and concepts change, and so it's typical to have this amendment process that is anticipated. Again, it's legally equivalent to a zoning ordinance. It is recorded with the county and the city so that all future property owners who acquire property within these MDAs are subject to or put on notice as to what those regulations are associated with the MDA. It also is subject to future enforcement, just like any other part of our city. We found in reviewing the City Council's strategic plan that you are very familiar with, that you had a number of statements in there identifying a desire to find ways to leverage our proximity to open space and our enjoyment of athletic fields, and we wanted to see if there was a way to try and monetize that and create some commercial interests relative to recreation in our city. And so it appears that this kind of idea would align with the City Council approved objectives in your strategic plan, and that was stated in your staff reports. Engineering reviewed these proposals and did not have any concerns. Outline of those MDA amendments. One of the things, and this was just a minor typo, and this was totally on my part, it was noticed as additional 36 homes in Area A of the project, but in actuality, it's only 27. And that is in the MDA amendment. That was just a typo on my part. But these are the list of the proposed amendments. Planning Commission had reviewed this and had recommended approval with a 4-2 vote. The general plan, again, if the property is removed from the MDA and dedicated to the city as the current MDA requires, in order to facilitate residential development, we would amend the general plan from parks and plaza space, which is consistent with open space or park, to residential 2. And then the Planning Commission had reviewed that and had, again, recommended approval at a vote of 4-2. The Creek Ridge Cove MDA is the new MDA for just this project. And this is the conceptual plan that you have seen before in your packet. The Creek Ridge Cove MDA, again, it's a negotiated process. This is recognized by state code. As I stated, these agreements are recorded with the county and the city. It permits 136 detached single-family homes. So we want to be really clear, we're not talking about apartments or condos. These will be detached single-family homes. They have design guidelines, again, that were essentially similar to other projects in the city. One of the provisions, and we've talked about this already, the Planning Commission was looking for a way to maintain a clear, unobstructed side yard setback, and also trying to increase kind of these architectural elements of the project. But you've already heard from Ryan Button as the master developer on that they feel like their standards already sufficiently address these concerns, subject to kind of the underlying zone, which it looks like that's been something that the council's been comfortable with, is deferring to those standards. So again, with that, all three of those have been recommended for approval by the Planning Commission for your final decision.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Any comments from council at this time?
So on that Creek Ridge, just maybe a you or Ryan question, I'm not sure. What does that, or is there any amount of green space or open space for, I know a lot of it's moving to housing, but is there still a green belt or a belt or something around that creek area? Or
yes, right. Basically, all of this white area is still going to end up being green space. Potentially, we're going to see a trail connection. Yeah. We're still going to have the riparian area along the creek, of course. Yeah.
Correct if I'm wrong, the representative from LR. Part of what they wanted included in this amendment is the requirement for us to complete that open space. So it doesn't just sit, so that's part of it, is an actual obligation for the city to complete that area.
Yes, we are to complete that area to a level we determine necessary.
And then follow-up question, the trail, I mean, the jagged line at the top of the page, which is north, that's
Midas Creek.
That's Midas Creek, right, where the trail system does go through. That will continue through there, and maybe this is a question for Ryan, but I believe that they plan on pulling basically a trail or a walk path along that border of the project.
So the property to the west, or left in this case, is in South Jordan, and that's Rio Tinto's property. So obviously none of us are in control. I would assume that Rio Tinto would want that trail system along Midas to continue to the west. Copper Creek has been realigned, and so you can see this one cul-de-sac that's kind of off on the left by itself, and there's kind of this white space. That's where the Copper Creek realignment has already taken place, and there will be a trail. There's already a section that's constructed along, it's going off the map here, but along Copper Fields now, and so yes, that would be part of what I anticipate the city will want. We would love to see, obviously, that connect to all the trails we've constructed over in Teton Ranch and Jackson and whatnot, literally right there. And obviously, we are working with the county and the city to run trails underneath 6400 West, so there'll be pedestrian connections where people don't need to cross the road to continue on those trails. So yeah, and then the Copper Creek trail system ties into our trails in Olympia, so it's all interconnected. It's going to be awesome that way. There are 2 trail connections existing, stubbing out of Copper Fields, which we've picked those up. We've picked the one up on the right, I guess. I don't know how to, down on our south end, I guess, is maybe the best way to say it. The one that's kind of in the, what would this be, the bottom left corner of the property we're talking about tonight, there's a trail there that ties into the existing trail system that is off property of what we're doing, but both of those connections will be left in place.
So thank you for clarifying that.
This property also has a wide park strip on 6400 West because of the power corridor. There's also a trail system that runs north-south there.
The amendment to the Creek Ridge MDA does require that there's an obligation on the city to complete the Midas Creek Trail. That was just kind of a clarification that was discussed between both parties.
Is that going to land on a city responsibility or
Yeah,
developer?
city responsibility, and city's responsible to maintain it.
Maybe just an important side note, on this particular property, we aren't requesting any park impact fees off of, reimbursement or anything. We're not. So you'll have 136 homes paying a park impact fee that could go to construct and pay for those things. So I would think that would be enough money to cover the cost of installing that trail system for you.
We've also been very successful getting trail money, so I would anticipate we would continue that track record with the county.
Okay.
One last note on that is those trails then, once we're successful in completing 6400 West and the trail connects underneath the creek, that would also tie right into that 7-acre park in Jackson, Teton area.
Okay.
Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, is there a couple things I can say? Just on this one, a couple things we talked about. I noticed on here it was like A, B, B, C. In the staff report, anyway, I just want to make sure. So A and D on this one are the two that we had talked about adjusting, and then with the 50-foot wide lot minimum, and then we'll again adjust the design standards to address square footage or something, I guess, if needed. Maybe we don't need that on this because this isn't the R110 issue, but anyway.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for me?
Might have more after public comment, but yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Gwen, at this point, we're going to open up. Are we good? Oh, one more, Michael, sorry.
Apologize for this. Planning Commission was last week on Wednesday, and we published these reports on Thursday. There was an additional recommendation from the Planning Commission, and I imagine that the council is aware of this, but they had stated, consider adding open space to the southeast quadrant of the subject property to connect the two planned trails and provide open space between existing homes and the future homes to the north. Again, that was that idea of trying to create some kind of buffer between potentially the existing residential development in Creek Ridge and the proposed Creek Ridge Cove. I just wanted to have that on record, that was a specific recommendation from the Planning Commission as well. So.
Okay, so at this point, again, we are opening public comment for items 9.5, 9.6, and 9.7. So if you have a comment, if you could state your name, and you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, my name is Ace Austria, and I know you guys have seen me before. So for me, I'm opposed to the residential area providing 27 additional homes behind our house. It was, as you guys know, it was promised that it's gonna be a park. And also, we pay, like you already saw that there are some residential people who actually paid more money just to get that area or that lot just because we wanted to get a better view. There's also a reason we actually did pay that much money. We wanted somewhere less noise, less pollution, and less distraction. We're looking for somewhere we can see ourselves staying forever, our forever home. And then the excavation behind behind that area, it's quite disappointing that you guys have not noticed that you let the builder already start working on it even though it's not approved yet. That is a red flag for me. As for you guys, you should be looking at it. And as you can see, there's a lot of areas that they can actually build that development, residential area, where the Olympia Development Master Project, we could actually just move it there. You guys have promised a park. There's a lot of people who moved there for a specific reason. It's because of that park. If you guys gonna take that away from us, I wonder what people think about everybody here, all the council members, and also the bunch of people sitting in the city, stating that they don't listen to their people, or either you guys are liars, or you just don't comply and you just make your own decision without any hearing others' concern. And that's it for me.
Thank you.
My name is Lauren Brewer, and pardon me if I'm nervous, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys. I've talked at some of these other public hearings. The frustration is very real for our community at Copperfield, where there's this perceived disregard from the city council on our desires to have a park. Many have already felt that the city's already locked this in behind closed doors, that the money's too powerful of an incentive to find some kind of compromise for us, to find some kind of park space, not just a trail, not just an open field, but a place that's a park that has amenities like a playground, a pavilion, a place where our kids can play sports, not just a sports complex where we're gonna have to pay money or join a league, but a place where our kids can pick up sports on their own and play with the neighbors, get to know them here. I'm worried about the precedent that this sets when a park is promised, when a park is planned, and the money interests come in to take that away from people. What kind of city are we going to be? Are we going to be a city where money trumps us? Trumps everything? Trumps our interests? Trumps promises? Or is it going to be a city where we keep our promises, where we make those spaces, we make those opportunities to have those spaces available? Or is it just about money? I don't really care about the sports complex one way or the other. I get the desire for it. I get that eventually it will probably come, one way or the other. I would rather pay taxes more than sacrifice this park, do a bond, do something else, than just try and do this development to try and skirt around it. I don't know. But thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lauren.
My paper was part of his, or related, or married. Bradley Stoll, thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. We've been to these meetings before. We've seen you, had great conversations with you, and appreciate you listening to us and taking our concerns into consideration. One of the things that's interesting, because I haven't been coming to many of these meetings, but it's when these MDAs come up and they start getting all changed, it's amazing to me that I've seen so much green space. That's the thing that keeps getting sacrificed for these builders to come in and just build more homes. And that's why the Planning Commission voted 4-2. The two women who were on the Planning Commission voted no for that. And that's what they stated. They said, we're concerned that we continue to have these MDAs that we set. And like Mr. Malloy said, yeah, but MDAs are just meant to be changed all the time anyway. And we're just changing them to take away green space in Herriman. And it seems like Lauren mentioned, the precedence that it sets is a little bit disappointing, because it seems like green space is the thing that we keep sacrificing in the interest of just building more homes. And so that's disappointing to see. And to Lauren's point and to the Planning Commission's point, and Teddy brought this up as well, Mr. Hodges brought this up as well, that, you know, what if this is all going to go forward anyway, what harm is there in taking those 11 homes that back up to all the homes in Copper Fields and making more of a green space there? I mean, if we're really looking for compromise instead of just packing those homes in, I know you've talked about promises. It wasn't, you know, promises. It wasn't a promise. The park wasn't a promise, you've said in some of these meetings, and we feel it was. But you know, you said it wasn't a promise, and things are changing. But maybe that's a compromise, is to take those 11 homes and make some kind of green space for all these folks in Copper Fields who thought that they were going to get a park space. So anyway, appreciate your time, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Bradley.
Aki Darzon, appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me. I recently just barely had a baby, and my wife and I, we always cross 126 just to go to the Creek Ridge Park. And as I obviously see the city is planning to do big things with that street, I just really worry for the safety of our kids. It's not even the views, it's not even anything else for us. I have a 3-year-old, I have a 2-year-old, and I just barely had a baby. and we have no space. Herriman approved Copperfields. We were the first people that reserved a lot in that area, and we had no clue what it was going to end up to be. We're really frustrated, but that's okay. But we have no space for our kids to play in the backyard, so our only thing is to go to that park. And now we don't have a single park to go to. So now Herriman City wants us to cross 126 to go to Creek Ridge Park when we're going to be expanding that highway into a busy highway or busy street. That poses risk to our children. That's my worry. It's not the area, it's not anything else, it's not the space, it's the bottom line. We don't have a space for our kids to go out to play, and now they're taking it away to build more homes. If you can give us a little bit of space for our kids, that's all we're asking. So it's just for our protection of our children. Thank you.
Can you tell me your name again?
Yeah, Aki Durzon.
Aki?
Mm-hmm.
How do you spell that?
AKI, it's Finnish.
AKI. Perfect. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Aki. Okay, seeing no further comment at this time, I'll come back to council. Someone want to address any of these?
Yeah, I was just gonna make a comment here. Yeah, I told myself I was gonna be quiet tonight, but I'm not. Of all the things in my time on this council that have frustrated me the most, it is the comments that come from understandably frustrated residents who want to lob ridiculous insults at the members of this council. Calling any of us liars or that we're not listening to residents, frankly, pisses me off. These are all people of very good character. They are trying their damnedest to do what is best for this city. Me, I was elected by the residents of District 4 in Herriman to represent their interests in this city. To suggest because I have a difference of opinion about something that may be going on in another area of my city than you do, that doesn't make me a liar, and that doesn't make me not listen to you. That means I'm trying to listen to 60,000 residents in this city and what's best for all of them, not just for your 11 houses. The idea that this council is motivated by money, I've seen people accusing this body of profiting from these decisions is absolutely ludicrous. None of us own any of this land. None of us have any ownership in the developments. None of us are home builders. None of us have anything to do with home building. And it is just asinine that the people who never show up to a budget meeting, who never show up to a freaking city council meeting in 5.5 years, want to come in here and call us liars or something like that is just ridiculous. If you want to be a part of this city, then get your ass up here and run for city council. Don't just show up at a meeting once every 5 years and think you have the right to call these men liars. That is just so offensive to me, I can't believe it. Thinks that some decision has been made behind closed doors. If we made a decision behind closed doors, we're in violation of the state of Utah, the Constitution and the Open Public Meetings Act. That's why we debate this. In almost every meeting I've had, I have begged and pleaded with the residents of this city to come out to the meetings, to make their voices heard, to be a part of the process and to get involved. And they don't show up. They don't come to the budget meetings. They don't come to the meetings when there's votes on tax increases. They just want to show up and call us names when we make a decision that they particularly don't like.
Steve, can I interrupt you? I'm sorry. Let me maybe just explain, Aki especially, I want to back up. Steve, if you're okay with it, I'd like to back up and maybe this is the right time to explain how this process started, like what the thoughts are behind this. probably about a year ago, we were in a meeting where it became very obvious to us that we have, and I don't know the exact numbers, don't quote me on these numbers, but we have about $100 million in committed parks projects throughout this community. Just because we have valued open space, we have valued parks, we try to have parks within, but then
We don't have money to build that
but
park.
the money also shows that we only have.
Almost 280 million at one
It
point,
was.
remember that?
That park or many other parks.
Yes, so as we were looking for that, we're not going to be able to build all these parks. It's a battle that all cities are facing right now. So as we looked, I'll be honest, that came up, and then I met with the developer. This was a council-driven concept. This was not developer-driven. This is not developed, this was because it started out, and you guys that have been to the community meetings, you've heard this, right? The concept to try to compile 50-plus acres happened because that qualifies us for outside money, for basically like county ZAP money. That's the primary one we were kind of thinking we could go after. Every 10 years, the county reapproves a ZAP tax, if you will. It's called Zoo Arts and Parks. We all pay it in the county. But the requirement is it's like 50 acres plus, right? We don't have that anywhere in the city. So we were trying to find areas where we could bring in revenue from outside us, because we will not be able to build this park. For example, I would love to say that we could build this park and the athletic complex. I would love to say we could do that. That's the dream. We would love that, right? We would absolutely love that. But to do this, Mountain Ridge Park, your park right there, the Creek Ridge Park was probably 10 years out in our master, that was at least, right? And that could change. Again, that's just a reality. I know that, Lauren, I know that's not a fun answer, right? But that's, previous councils have committed things, and we're not here to bash previous councils. There was not this understanding. Things have escalated in price through inflation recently. Everything costs more money than you can ever imagine. It's just ridiculous, right? So the concept was try to compile 50-plus acres to be able to bring in outside money. The truth is we can't afford to build the athletic complex ourselves either. We can't. But what this does, this allows us, one, to bring in outside money for a complex, right? We don't know we've said that over and over. We don't know that we can make a complex happen. We think we can. We don't know what it's going to look like. We've had no discussions about what it's going to look like. But what it also has done is there's a park committed in Jackson, which is not very far from you, right? That's not very far. What this almost does is that moves this, there's potential to move this up the ranking, if that makes sense, up in the timeline, because we're able to bring other money in to take on this big project, if that makes sense. So our hope is, we don't want you to cross 126. Our hope is, if I'm being honest, I hope that you can go across 6400 under. There's going to be a trail underneath 6400 over to Jackson Park, which is going to be a phenomenal park. That's the plans we're looking at are going to have the amenities you've talked about. Because I don't want you crossing 126 to go to that park. I want you to have a good park. So we are trying to, we had this discussion 2 weeks ago. How do we consolidate and still give residents a good park space within, hopefully, walking distance? But we just can't. Reality is we cannot put a park in every neighborhood now. That's just, nobody wants to hear that. I'll say that publicly, but we just can't. There's just not money to do that. So we are trying, to what Steve said, this is a good faith effort on us to try to create some open spaces. We're opening 60 acres. To say we're not valuing open space, that's where we're opening 60 acres right now, right? Which is more than what we're giving up. We're actually getting more open space right now. I 100% get the frustration that that's what you moved into. I've told you that, Bradley. I would be here too. If that was my backyard, I would be here. I would be here in your chair arguing. So I get that, right? We have to put on a different hat. I get it. We do have to put on a different hat and try to take care of the long-term financial health of this city. That's what we're tasked with. That's not an easy decision. This isn't an easy decision to tell 11 homes that you were promised a park in your backyard. That's not easy. Like I said, I would be upset too. It's not easy for us to say that, but that's what we're tasked with doing, is these hard decisions. To say it's about money, it's not about.
Mr. Mayor, planned and promised aren't the same thing.
Right. But, so hopefully that, again, we know you're probably not going to walk out of here and love this decision. We get it, but we hope at the end of this you understand that there's a bigger picture we're trying to accomplish. It's not to try to take advantage or break promises. We're in a financial struggle right now. Every city is. It's not just our city, right? Every city, we were just in St. George last week having other meetings with other cities. Every city is facing this right now. It's tough, right? So that's what we're trying to, hopefully that backing that up. I know you guys knew that, have been to some meetings. Lauren, I know, you might be newer, and that's okay, right? That's, Aki, that's just kind of, I'm hoping to explain that's why this started. We still want to get you parks. We absolutely still want to get you parks in your area. So that's, anyway, I just want to try to calm the temperature down a little bit.
So, Aki, safety is huge, especially. You need to get some sleep because you're probably not getting sleep. But, and Lauren, it's okay to be nervous because I've been at that dais on this other end 6, 7, 8 years ago, and it's nerve-wracking to get up there and talk to people that are in positions like we have. But we're just human. We're neighbors. We all live in the community. And we can't tax our way out of this. We would have to 100% tax increase, which is ridiculous. That would only bring my taxable income or my taxable property up to $116, and that's a 100% increase. I only pay $58 to our city every year through my property tax. I pay 3 times that or more to my library, and more of that to the school district and the county. So to pay more taxes, we would all pay another $100 a year to our city if we had more parks. That's barely going to move the needle. So the way to do that is build our economic venture, and we have our first hotel coming in. This kind of economic development is going to increase that for more hotels, more businesses. We just had to redo 4 parks in my Rosecrest development that is in my district. 2 of those parks got no amenities. They're just going grass fields. The other 2 parks are getting redone at a lower amenity level because of what the developers put in first have now come to their age, and we can't replace same as same. We have other parks that we're getting our whole master parks plan done in the next little bit. That's under, so we can actually get a whole aerial view of what our city has as amenities and where our process is replacing those things. One thing we're lacking in the city is programmable field space, open programmable field space. You go to Butterfield Park at any weekend during the summertime, it is packed with thousands and thousands of kids playing every sport imaginable. Baseball down low, soccer, football, every field space is torn up with field sports, and we need more. As you heard from, I can't remember her name, at the beginning, they're going outside the city, and we're adding traffic to the roads and more cars in or out. So I would love to build more park space, but as long as we're connected in a safe manner and safe trail systems to easily access, walking a quarter mile to a park isn't unheard of. And I think that's going to be beneficial. We have a lot of other accessibility areas in that area. There's going to be more out to the west as well. And I know that those developments are coming in. I'm not sure what South Jordan is going to do. They're right there in that second corner, right behind your homes as well. So there's more to come. And the MDAs, once they're here, they don't change much. But through this process, they've changed a lot. These 3 new ones, for sure. And then we've made some slight adjustments to the one we just did for Olympia Hills. But all in all, once this is done, it moves forward. We did want to have a park out there. That was what was the plan. And that general plan has changed. It was open space. I don't even think it was programmed a park per se, other than open space. So, but that's my 2 cents. And Steve's passion comes out. We've had the same discussion that he's had towards you guys tonight, back and forth numerous times. And again, like we talked about before when we were giving him kudos and saying farewell to him, it's the point you get past that, right? And that disagreement doesn't have to be hatred or vindictive against the person or people. We're all citizens here. We're all wanting the betterment of the city. And I think a lot of these resolutions and a lot of these motions are moving towards that point. But again, that's betterment the city of our 5 views and opinions according to our citizens that we represent. We're taking your public input. And for everyone that's here, we've gotten numerous emails on top of that, and pro and con against these developments. And we're weighing all of that. And the public display here, and then what we've seen on social media, we hear all that, and we see all of it, and we do take it in. We do listen, but at the end of the day, we have to make the tough decision. What do we feel as a council, as an individual, and when we vote yes or no on these? So.
I got lots of notes, my analysis. So many comments, right? And when I've been in a lot of these meetings, both as a resident and on the council, a lot of them much more complicated and more divisive and difficult than this project, actually. The first one that got me involved is actually your neighborhood. I live in Heritage, right? We didn't want any of you there, right? And that's the normal response when you build a home. You expect to see what you have and what you like continued on that other side. Sorry, long-term staff members hate it when I say this, but the reason they have to deal with me now is that at that time, I was lied to, just flat out lied to, that entire area, that map that was shown. If you look at Heritage, you can pick out my house that's on there. I was one of 8 residents of 115 homes or so in that neighborhood that was notified of the 300-acre project that was being rezoned to an average of 8 units an acre. Right? We had paid attention. I did my homework. I knew that 6400 West would be a road one day and that was my backyard. I knew that would be the case, right? But I also knew that the land development process is a nebulous thing. And I did my best to educate myself. It was Salt Lake County at the time. I didn't believe my realtor, what they told me. I did my homework. I looked at what the actual zoning was. I looked at what the city boundaries were. Herriman City boundary was my back fence. It was Salt Lake County. So when I would call Herriman City, they would give me, we can't tell you, that's the county. I call the county would tell me we gotta talk to the city because the county's not gonna develop, it's gonna be the city. I went the rounds, this is the very short version. I went the rounds for 2 years and continued to see work being done, right? The soil tests being done and the wells that are out there, et cetera. I'd call the city. Nope, nothing's going on. Don't look behind the curtain, right? I'd call the county. Same answer. After one of those phone calls after a weekend, I got a notice in my mailbox 2 days later that this huge development was coming, and then I find out that it had been 2 years in the making. They just lied to me the whole time. That's why I'm sitting here now. From that point on, that was 2012. I was first elected in 2016. To Steve's point, and the reason I want to touch on this is I want people to be educated and involved, right? That was my first foray into all of this. My response was not to come in and shake my fists at anyone. It was to collect information and engage in the process to see how we could affect, change, whether it was on that project or others. I organized, I want to say, I think our final count was close to 300 people attended that first meeting. We organized ourselves, we got the word out, we broke into committees as residents and said, here's our concerns. We've done our research. I was completely stonewalled by the council and the mayor at that time. Wouldn't return my calls, wouldn't return emails until they heard that we were contacting the school district and we were contacting UPD. We were contacting all these other organizations, asking questions, not just about what's going on, but what are the concerns we should have? What are their plans? We wanted information so that we could engage in the process and better our community. And as we did that, we actually ended up, I really want to give the abbreviated version, but the whole point is that please engage in the process. Right? If you really want to be involved in the community, rather than complain, find solutions. And it takes a lot of time and effort. We ended up engaging in that process. The people that were up here at that time, including management attorneys, they're all gone now. I've had a big part to do with that. We actually went past them. They sat there and told us there's nothing that we can do. We went to the developer and worked directly with the developer, who was LR. I'll look at Wendy, she's a representative tonight, so I'll throw stuff. But they saw that we were organized as a community, that we weren't irrational, we weren't throwing things at them, we weren't calling them names. We wanted to engage in the process and see how we could help, see how we could make things better for our neighborhood in that area. So we worked with the developer and made a ton of changes, not just to the zoning. We reduced the units by over 1,000. We cut it by 1/3. We got them to commit to all these things. We fought super hard. It was one of my main things to get that open space condensed into one usable area rather than a bunch of little pocket parks. So I think I'm the only one that can really speak to it from that point of view, that our intention all along from residents at that time was to consolidate that space for programmable space, fields, et cetera. There's tons of little parks around. All of us that have kids that play sports, no matter what sport it is, we leave the city, we leave our community to go find places to do it. We knew we needed that here. And then it was apparent that we would need more space than that. So from my time of involvement as a resident for that first 3 to 4 years of just as a community organizer, our intention as a community in that area was to leverage that to get something bigger. So that's the genesis of all of this. That's where it started, how we got kind of moving on from that point, the planning process, whether it's open space or the next item that we're going to talk about is the 2.5 acres that was designated, quote, as a fire station, or if it's a school, right? So also looking at that map, I don't know if it helps if you want to bring it back up, Michael, but looking at that map, where Teton Ranch is being built right now, that corner on 126 and 6400, that was supposed to be an elementary school. That was supposed to be where Bastion was supposed to go. When we bought our homes on that back corner, we thought we were going to have an elementary school next to us. The school district swapped land and put it over where it is. The next item we have, that's that 2.5 acres. During this process, somebody who bought a home right next to it, well, we were planning on there being a fire station. We were planning on being an elementary school. It's on the map as open space. Well, whenever a municipality purchases land, we have to give it a designation, right? So we designate it however we best can, right? The Walker property, right, we have that designation. The fire station property, et cetera. I'm jumping around a little bit, but the fire station property, that resident said, we bought our house, that was our plan, we'd rather have a fire station there than more houses that are just like ours. Like, well, from my time being involved in any of this, again, believe it or not, a brief history of my involvement. UFSA at that time, the city, we moved in 2009, from my time of being involved in this, they've never planned on being in a fire station. They knew that wasn't the right location. They just knew that they needed to purchase property that they could sell or trade for property in the right location as things developed. The school district will give you the same answer. We purchased property in anticipation of needing it down the road. If we waited, right, and only purchased it when we had to, we would pay through the nose. If we were able to find property that's available. So proper planning practices is, yeah, we're going to identify pieces that are available to purchase and try to get the best terms we can, knowing that might not be the end use at the time, you know, when it actually gets built out. So I would tell you the same thing about the park. As, again, my backyard is 6,400. As your neighborhoods were built and as I see those people at church and talk about it, the park came up right away. I told them all, don't plan on that being a park. Whatever Edge or whoever's selling it to you, it's designated as open space on the map. Don't plan on that being a park. I can't speak to what anyone was promised by a real estate agent or a builder, etc. All I can do is give you the perspective of my involvement and how we've gone about this and looked to plan. As the mayor mentioned, this is completely a council-driven project. I gave you the genesis of the idea when we saw that there was appetite and ways to leverage it to get a larger space and have someone else pay for, potentially even operate it, et cetera. Yeah, that we needed to look into that, not just for our residents that need those places to play, but for all the benefits that come with it. We would not be doing our jobs if we didn't look at those opportunities. So that's to back up and maybe explain the process and where things come from. That's kind of what I'll say there. Steve, I'm gonna miss you. Because if you don't do that, then it falls on me. I'm the next person that's probably most impatient with some of these things. But I understand the passion and the emotion because I was there. Only I would ask you to channel it and become engaged in the process, right? And help us and recognize that compromise, a good compromise, and I actually said this to Mr. Button on the phone the other day. I'm sure he will shake his head. I can't see him behind the podium there, but he'll nod vigorously when I say we've been at odds more than not over the years. And it's been, these processes are difficult, but I made the comment to him the other day as we're kind of looking through this, all right, how do you feel about things? Sherry and she would echo this as well. A compromise means that both sides give, right? If one of us walks away completely satisfied, we didn't do our job, right? So a compromise is just that. We both give a bit. Overall, that's what this process has been, and overall, a pretty good compromise. So a couple things. I always think that if people show up and make comments, I need to take notes. So if you see me looking down, it's not that I'm taking copious notes. I'm an old-fashioned paper guy. These guys make fun of me, but I'll pull out my folders from meetings from 10 years ago, and I'll have it all right there for them. So I want to make sure I address comments that have been made. One, the promise of a park. I think I've kind of hopefully adequately outlined the process of obtaining land, right, and proper planning, et cetera. Paid more for a lot. I don't think any of us can help you there. That's a business deal, and that's a developer. I don't know how they can promise you something that they don't own or have any part of. Preferring a buffer to separate those. I made the comment to Councilman Hodges. I mean, we've had this come up in many, many different developments. And I'll look to law enforcement. Having a trail go between the two neighborhoods maybe sounds good. It's not in the end, because it's not an open green space. It's literally a trail with some fences. And it ends up as an alley where bad things happen, right? In order for it to really be a green space, you're talking about, you know, a lot of space where the sight lines are open and those sorts of things, and that's not, simply just not possible. A better solution is, at least in our opinion, is what we've kind of outlined. I always think and I do this with my financial planning clients, if I can know them well enough, put myself in their shoes, knowing what I know, what would I do? Living right around the corner, if it's my backyard, I would much rather have another house, and that's part of the requirement is we want it to match your neighborhood. Another house like mine, similar-minded people, and I know where those boundaries are rather than that alleyway where constantly things are happening and people are back there and people are vandalizing my fence and all those sorts of things. We'd rather have that trail connect, the trail system connect, and have those buffers in the areas that were designated. Let's see. Promises, so we paid more. The work that's already being done, the work that you're seeing, the dirt that's moving, is not to build those homes. That work is part of the land disturbance to start putting 6400 West through. Right, so just to see that dirt moving doesn't mean that that's what's being built there. If you see they're actually moving dirt from 6400, right, to punch that through, it needs to go somewhere. That land's not being used yet, right? As we go through this process, whatever's approved, whether it would be a park or this, you would see that activity going on right now.
It's cheaper to move dirt on raw land than get traffic permits and hauling permits.
We don't listen, we're liars. So one, we've said this many times before, as Steve mentioned it. I've said this, countless times sitting here. Just because we don't agree on something does not mean we're not listening. The fact that we've had all of those meetings, the fact that we've taken into account all of those comments, we've had a couple of special meetings to deliberate on the comments from those meetings. All of us have attended many, if not all of those community meetings. I know all of us have engaged with, sat down with residents who've reached out to us after those. We've offered that. Come talk to me. I've taken time out of my schedule with my actual job, my family and other things to go meet with people and talk to them about all these things, the process, et cetera. So to say that we're not listening because you disagree with us is a non-starter for me. I won't even touch the liars thing. It's just ridiculous. The frustration is real. Absolutely, the frustration is real. Compromise, I think I've talked through a lot of those things. We're not making this decision in a vacuum. You can go listen to, or it's probably in the minutes from our previous council meeting, we discussed our future plans, the budget, our limited budget for parks and having to prioritize. Jackson Park, the 7-acre park we referred to, that is literally kitty corner that will be connected by those trails, is on that list. And the conversation was, well, we're not going to have all the money to do all of the amenities. Steve was the first one to speak up. He lives on the opposite side of town. That, hey, what are we doing? Right? We need to take stock. There's lots of amenitized areas. What do we have over there? And I was quick to say, yeah, it's my neighborhood, that's my side of town. We don't have nearly the type of amenities that the other side of town does. So we are cognizant of those things. We are looking at them, and we want to have those opportunities and have those connections. It is part of a bigger plan. Let's see. The pay, so want to have places to just go play instead of having to pay to be there. There is a gigantic need. So when I coach youth soccer, 4 different teams, 2 9-year-old teams and 2 older teams that compete around the country. That's my hobby. This is hobby. My actual job is as a financial planner. Every second I spend here costs me money. We got an email last week where somebody accused us of somebody on the council will benefit from this financially. I don't know anybody, to Steve's point, that benefit financially. In fact, my time spent coaching, they do pay me. I have my licenses. I just did my taxes. It cost me, after what they paid me, it cost me $5,000 to coach soccer. Your coaches don't get paid enough. It costs me money to be here and do this. Time away from family. I just mentioned I got started in 2012. My youngest is 18. Do that math. He would come to these meetings with me when we were residents. From that point on, either I or one of my neighbors attended every planning commission meeting, every city council meeting. I'd pick him up from wherever he was, maybe the soccer practice. I'd give him a bag of chips and a drink. He'd sit back in the corner until mom could come pick him up. And that's all my kids have known for the last 14 years, right? So be careful. It just might happen to you. Hopefully it does to somebody. Let's see. So coaching, where I was going with that. We've had these conversations. This type of facility is beyond needed, not just in our city, but regionally, right? So whether it's an organized soccer practice, lacrosse, any field sport is what we're targeting for this. Just tonight, as we were sitting, so our work conference room is right here. Across the street is the county rec center. There's a little strip of grass in front of the rec center. I look out as we're leaving to go from that meeting to this one, I look out and there is a coach trying to do an ad hoc practice in that little piece of grass. It's not from the county center. That's just somebody who's trying to have practice somewhere. There's no space anywhere. Now think if we actually had a place for those organized people who pay to go, how much of our other park space it opens up for people just to have parks again. Right? So there's multiple facets to what we're trying to accomplish here. Money, are we just worried about money? Yeah, I'm greatly worried about money. It's what I do for a living. I plan. You heard me talk about my efforts with public safety. I've heard a handful of people make the same comment of, I'd rather pay higher taxes. Let me give you just a snippet of what that would mean. Just so there's 3 property taxes. Please look at your property tax. I carry it around. I'll be happy to show you mine after the meeting. I carry it around to just illustrate that point because most people don't understand their property taxes. Most people think that their property tax that they pay goes to the city they live in. It does not. My property tax this year, well, the year I moved in was about $3,000, 2009. I should have this memorized by now, but so this is. That's the reason I carry it around with me. This is 2009. Property tax was, Teddy can vouch, $3,004.55. Herriman's portion of that, $85. The rest of it goes to, half of it goes to the school district. The rest of it goes to basically a third to the county, police and fire, right? And then a smattering of other county functions, mainly water boards, mosquito, right, et cetera. Now, $3,004.55. Herriman's portion, $85.60. Fast forward to 2023's assessment. Is that 2024. You guys have heard this. Any guesses? $7,196.47. Herriman City has never increased our property tax, not once. There is a small adjustment that's done based on valuation of homes, right? But it's not an increase. It's how quickly did our property grow versus another area of the county. It's an equalization that the county does. So of that $7,196, Herriman's portion's $119. That's what goes to the city.
So $30
Of $7,200, right? Please look at this. To Steve's point, please pay attention to where your taxes come from, where they go to, and how we have to pay for things. We don't have money, right? If we were to increase our portion of property tax to build the parks that are on all the maps, and now that's just one cost to build them, and then to actually maintain them and replace aging equipment, et cetera, that 114 could easily be over 1,000 tomorrow, just to try to follow that plan to build them. Then you can look at actual fire and safety, right? So that's the bigger one of that amount, 7,100. A little over $800 for fire, a little over $900 for police. Those are costs that now we have separated from the county that was just taking it and then telling us here's a service you get. We're controlling it. We're making sure we get the bang for our buck and doing our best to control that. Those are just as, if not more affected. Think about park space, think about the reservoir and the demand it puts on public safety, right? You can easily quadruple those amounts, right? If we don't find a way other than property tax, we're not talking about raising tax a little bit. That 7,000 could easily double just to fund Herriman's side of things. Our only other avenue for revenue is sales tax, right? We need businesses located in Herriman and people spending money here and then going to their home city to get their services. That's the only way that we avoid that precipitous increase in property tax. Again, Reader's Digest version, right? So yes, we're concerned about money. We look at the budget.
That was a Reader's Digest.
It is. You know I can go
Been
much.
a while since I've had the Reader's Digest then.
Right? Right, so part of our plan always has been how do we, I affectionately call Herriman the cul-de-sac of Salt Lake County. No one comes here unless they live here. We're not on the way anywhere, right? Even Mountain View, there's only a sliver that comes through here. We've done a good job preserving that corridor for commercial businesses to try to catch those dollars. Now as South Jordan develops between us and Kennecott, 2,000 acres to our west, right? This is smack dab in the middle. All the maps will show. We've got Mountain View, U111, 126, 118th. It's actually in really good position, right, for those transportation dollars. And as all of you have been here and been privy to how the political process works to get transportation dollars, my entire time involved in this community, the county, the state, anyone outside of Herriman does not give a crap about what's happening out here because they don't live out here, they don't come out here. As soon as there's some critical mass and amenities, say like Butterfield Canyon, right? We're trying to open up recreation access. We have other things, something like this puts it on the map. As soon as word got out that we were seriously pursuing this, all of a sudden, like floodgates have opened up as far as those powers that be that want to help us get funds to help with the transportation, realign U111, get the Bangor interchanges getting done. Those three was, all three together, $150 million at the time. that we helped facilitate get. And I don't often do this braggadocious thing, but please understand, we are working on those things, and if it weren't for us, those wouldn't be happening. The developers were putting that money somewhere else. We heard about it, fought for it, and said, look at these things that are happening as we put these things on the map. All of a sudden, those people who didn't even want to talk to us are asking to meet with us to say, how can we help you facilitate these things? So it is part of a much, much bigger plan, and yes, we are concerned about the money. I know it drives some of my colleagues crazy to hear me say these things over and over. They've heard this speech many, many times, but most of you haven't ever been here, right? There hasn't been an issue that you've been concerned enough about to take time to be here. My whole thing is education. If I can help you understand how things work and even convince you to engage in the process and help us, even better. So while some may say they might rather pay higher taxes and have something they want by their home, there are 60,000 other residents that we have to look at providing those services for and find a way to pay for it. Let's see, I think I've addressed the 11 homes, the green space, crossing, we've already done that, and how to pay for services. I think I just touched on that one. I think that covers it all. Okay. Hopefully I got them all. I know, okay. It drives them crazy, but I want to make sure that I touch the points that everybody's commented on, and they know that, yeah, we are listening, and I do write these things down, and I do take that into an account. Just because we make a decision that you disagree with, or I disagree with you on something, doesn't mean that we're not listening, and you might disagree with everything that I've just said. That's okay. That's part of the process. So I appreciate everybody coming tonight and to the other meetings and engaging with us, and we'll continue to do our best. Previous councils was mentioned. I've been super critical of previous councils, a big reason why I got involved, but you know what? They did the best they could with the information and the tools they had at the time. We're trying to do the same. We're trying to fix a lot of problems that, in my opinion, they created. And people that come after us, we'll do the same and probably say the same thing about all the things I just went on about. So my thanks and appreciation to all of you, everyone else who might be looking at this online or watching later, anybody who's come out to any of these meetings, called me, emails, etc. It really has all gone into this, where we've come from when we kind of announced here's the general outlook of what, things that we're looking at. This has changed quite a bit. There's been quite a bit of compromise. And I'm actually really thankful that we are where we are. About a month ago, we're having some of the final council meetings. I couldn't be here, death in the family, and a previously planned trip right after that. We said we gotta go. I couldn't be here, took off, and I just said, you know what, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. So here we are, and we'll see what happens from here, but thanks to everybody. I hope I adequately answered questions or at least gave you information. Like I said, I'll stick around afterwards. Anybody who's watching, listening, all of us are always happy to meet with you, have a phone call, email us, etc.
And just to reiterate, I just want to take 90 seconds here.
I'm trying to wind down.
So the feedback we got from residents is part of why so much of this has changed from the beginning. I mean, the Sorrento property originally was suggested 300 plus units. Then it was over 200 units, and then it was 180 units. Then it was 150, and we were talking about 120 units. And the developer came back and said, hey, why don't we do 113, because I think this will be a better development and it'll better address what the neighboring residents' concerns were. I mean, that feedback that we got helped shaped and changed huge parts of this decision. We are desperately seeking that input, and we listen to it, and it impacts what we do, and it changes the outcome of these decisions, and it changes the future of Herriman. That's why I'm so passionate about people getting involved. But disagree with us aggressively, that's great. This guy down here and that guy sitting there have probably disagreed more than any two people you could possibly imagine. And these guys together are part of the reason why we've got all these great things coming out to the west of us. They helped realign U-111. They've brought over almost $150 million of funding into our community to build roads that we didn't have the money for as a council. I just want you guys to understand, just because we make a decision you don't agree with does not mean we are not listening and we are not doing everything we can to advocate for what your priorities are.
I think sometimes people forget we all live here too. Like I said, I'm your neighbor. I literally live around the corner.
Okay, the baby's asleep, Chief is asleep, so we had to take a walk. So we need to wrap.
That means I have a very soothing voice.
Let's go. Let's. I think we belabored it. I think we're on 9-5. Let's make a motion and let's go.
Some potential, go ahead. You can go before I do.
My real intention is
Well,
give him time to
Mayor.
adjust the wording for everything, right?
I just invited him up, if that's
That's
okay.
fine. You've been good at filling in my role tonight, so.
I just want to make sure that we got the telecom in this one as well, and you're, the same note, that's what I'm.
So for item 9.5, which is the amendment to the Creek Ridge MDA. So just for background, I drafted the second amendment to the Creek Ridge MDA, and that draft was based on the memorandum of understanding that was signed by the city a few weeks ago. I have not yet seen the revisions from Land Reserve. So I think there will be changes that they propose. So this one would also be subject to approval by the city manager and city attorney. If there are any substantive changes, staff will bring them back. And I would suggest that we set this for the next meeting so that way we don't have to notice it again. And I want to be clear that because all these other motions that you're making are contingent on items 9.1 through 10 and 9.13, this is one of those items. So there's going to be a little bit of a limbo with 9.5 because we don't know if they'll just sign it, if they're going to have revisions, and if they have revisions, we might need to come back to you and talk about those revisions, and then you'll have an opportunity to approve or deny it if there are any substantive changes. So
are you suggesting a continuation of 9.5?
No. He's suggesting that considerable changes would come back to us, but
if there are any substantive changes.
They'll come to us.
So I just don't know. I imagine that there's going to be some changes, but we did base it off of the MOU, so that's why hopefully they're not substantive in nature. And the other thing is add a clause that clarifies that the removed property is not subject to the Creek Ridge MDA, that's going to fall under, this whole land transfer.
Is there any other wording in this one that we need to go over, such as the?
That's for a different item.
That's for a different, yep.
Okay, so this one's good as it is.
Yeah, I think so.
I'll just add the substantive thing. Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2025-10, approving the second amendment to the Creek Ridge Master Development Agreement located at approximately 6600 West 11800 South, conditioned upon the approvals of items 9.1 through 9.10 and 9.13. Will also be subject to the final review and approval of language and the concepts discussed during council. If there are any substantive changes, it will be brought back to a future meeting.
Yeah, at the next city council meeting. And then add a clause that clarifies that all the property removed from the Creek Ridge MDA is not subject to any of the restrictions or CCNRs that are currently in place.
And with the
including that language from the attorney.
Language that we talked about in the other.
This one's not.
Doesn't have it.
No,
Okay.
telecom, yep.
Okay, we good? Okay, motion by Jared. Second by Teddy. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes on this one. That motion carries. 9.6.
So this one is for the general plan, right? So we should be able to read it as written. If somebody else wants to take those honors.
Motion to approve resolution number R23-2025, amending the general plan map for property located at approximately 12160 South, 6400 West from Parks and Plazas to Neighborhood Residential 2, conditioned upon the approvals of items 9.1 through 9.10 and 9.13.
Motion by Steve,
Second.
second by Teddy. Steve?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, that motion carries. 9.7.
So there's a lot of changes. The changes made to the MDA shall be reviewed and approved by the city manager and city attorney. Changes to the MDA include staff recommendations in the staff report with the following revisions. To A, to only require the side yard setback to comply with the underlying zone. 2D, to be modified and clarified that the contrasting colors for the windows trim is an element of the home's design. The frontage width shall not be less than 50 feet. The landscaping section in the MDA be modified to require landscaping to be installed within 9 months of the certificate of occupancy, and that these regulations be in the CCNRs enforced by the HOA. Allow a maximum of 136 residential units. If any properties are used for churches or schools, the lots be proportionally reduced by the amount of acres used for those uses. And lastly, allow a private telecommunication within the HOA with an expiration date of 10 years from the effective date from the MDA.
Just checking this time. So I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2025-11, approving the Ridge Cove Master Development Agreement for a project located at approximately 12160 South, 6400 West, conditioned upon the approvals of items 9.1 through 9.10 and 9.13, including the items referenced by the city attorney, and subject to a final review of the language and concepts discussed at this meeting by the city attorney and city manager. I think that covers it all. Yeah.
Okay, motion by Jared,
Second.
second by Teddy. We'll go Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, that motion carries as well.
Or Jackie.
Okay, we'll move on to 9.8. And again, this one and 9.9 will be together.
This property we will just generally refer to as the Big Bend Cove. This first part is a general plan amendment and then a new master development agreement, again to facilitate residential development of 11 units. This is the general area within the city of this project. Highlighted in this yellow box is that 2.54 acres for Big Bend Cove. Again, this is property that is currently owned by the city. As mentioned earlier, it was at one time thought to be the future site of a fire station. As such, in our general plan, we had designated as civic and community. The proposal to facilitate development on this property for homes is to change that to neighborhood residential 2. Planning Commission found that the proposal meets the intent of the zoning standards. Engineering reviewed it and did not have any concerns with the proposal. And then the second half of the request is this Big Bend Cove MDA, which includes a conceptual plan. You can see this is kind of like an extended, what we call a hammerhead, which is provided for emergency vehicle turnaround. As you can see, the property has development on the east, south, and west sides. So we do not need this hammerhead to extend all the way out to the east and west property lines. This will be a private road maintained by an HOA with just 11 homes. It's recommended by the Planning Commission that these east-west legs be shortened to sufficiently to provide for the turnaround and, of course, access to those homes in the southwest and southeast corners of the site. But by shortening those legs, we get a little more room for private ownership and also less maintenance obligations for the HOA on the private road. The current zoning is R210, which does facilitate already residential development on the property. Again, the zoning standards have been met for this recommendation. includes design standards, again, similar to those we've seen in the Olympia project. And on the MDA itself, the engineering department has reviewed those and recommended approval. Planning Commission recommended 6-0 approval of the general plan amendment for the City Council to consider. And then finally, the MDA itself also received a 6-0 vote with some of the similar comments that you've seen in the other projects.
Okay. Any other comments? This one's pretty straightforward, I think.
The other thing I had about this is, because this is a private road, not a public road, you had mentioned creating parking, no parking along one side of the road.
So we'll work with staff on that. The city has ordinances that dictate, it's the fire department, I think, that dictates whether you can park or not. It's an asphalt width. So, yeah, we'll work with staff and engineering to make sure we're in compliance.
Okay.
What's the proposed use, or are those just gonna go to the landowners for the reduced hammerhead areas? How's that?
Yeah, I'll need to look at that so that we don't create a no man's land area. We'll probably just expand and add it to those lots or something. It'll be kind of part of their front yard. So, but yeah, we'll want it landscaped so it doesn't turn into someone trying to park in the dirt, like it's some extra parking. Yeah, so we'll make sure it's not no man's land.
Or maybe a driveway approach or something, depending on house layout or something?
Yeah, depending on how we orient those lots or those homes. Yeah, good question.
Okay.
Any other questions for me?
We'll be okay. Okay. So we will do public comment at this time on 9.8 and 9.9.
I just have one comment to add about this. This whole modified public comment format that we do that allows residents to come in and make comments as we're dealing with things is something I proposed when I got on council years ago. I actually advocated that so that we could have more public comment, just because I was so frustrated with the process when we were trying to make public comment at the county or other meetings, so.
Kudos, I love it.
It's helped a lot.
Yep.
It's more specific to the items too.
Okay, seeing no public comment on this, I'll look for a motion on 9.8.
Motion to approve resolution number R24-2025, amending the general plan, future land use map for 2.54 acres at 5860 West Herriman Boulevard from civic and community to neighborhood residential 2, conditioned upon the approvals of items 9.1 through 9.10 and 9.13.
Motion by Steve.
Second.
Second by Jared. Steve?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
No vote yes, that motion carries. 9.9.
So the revisions I have here is changes made to the MDA shall be reviewed and approved by the city manager and the city attorney. Changes to the MDA to include staff recommendations in the staff report with the following revisions. 2A, to only require the side yard setbacks to comply with the underlying zone. 2D, to be modified and clarified that the contrasting colors for the window trim is an element of homes designed. This one, the lot width shall not be less than 60 feet. Landscaping shall be added to or modified in the MDA to be installed within 9 months of a certificate of occupancy, and these regulations be in the CCNRs and enforced by the HOA. Sidewalks shall not be required by the city if any properties are used for, this one's probably not applicable. Allow private telecommunication in the HOA with the expiration date of 10 years from the effective date from the MDA.
Good.
Good.
Are we okay with the 10 years from the effective date of the MDA as opposed to another date based on the 80% that we had talked about?
Yeah, well, in our
No, I think that's
discussion,
what
we
we
said we
agreed
were.
for the last two MDAs.
Okay,
So,
great,
yeah.
no problem.
That,
Wanna make
that,
sure
that way
everybody's
just,
good with
all
that, so,
consistent.
okay.
that way just is consistent with the length of the MBDA. When it's
Perfect.
over, then it is too.
Okay.
All right, so make a motion to approve ordinance number 2025-12, approving the Big Bend Cove Master Development Agreement for a project located at approximately 5860 West Herriman Boulevard, conditioned upon the approvals of items 9.1 through 9.10 and 9.13 with the revisions as described by the city attorney.
Motion by Jared.
Second.
Second by Teddy. We'll go Jared.
Yes.
Teddy.
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That motion carries. Okay. Okay, we'll go to 9.10, and we don't need to have any more public comment on these. So, Blake?
First item is regarding the Olympia Public Infrastructure District, the PID, it's easier to say, governing document. So this amendment will apply to the areas shown here. Special attention to the smaller oval, that's the Sorrento property. And so the purpose for this amendment is, one, to put proper references in it because the state legislature has changed a few things, and so the references were updated. One of the big changes is that PID dollars can be used to remediate contaminated soils. So we included Sorrento into the annexation area and clearly identified that these funds can be used for that purpose to remediate the contaminated soils. So that one's pretty simple. Staff recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Were the other two properties not going to be included in this MD? Okay.
I don't need it.
Yeah, I was just,
Yeah, just for the
We'll show you why in a minute.
No, yeah.
Just for figuring out how to come up with the money to pay for cleaning up that land.
Yep.
Okay, I'll look for a motion.
Keep it rolling. Motion to approve resolution number R25-2025, authorizing the amendment to the governing documents of the Olympia Public Infrastructure District conditioned upon the approvals of items 9.1 through 9.10 and 9.13.
Motion by Jared.
Second. Sorry.
Okay, motion by Jared, second by Steve. Jared?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I vote yes, that motion carries.
All the ones we've discussed, that
In
should.
9.11,
I thought he was telling
I thought we,
There was just a discussion of whether
we're
you
just
could take a break or
Little
not.
sidebar. No, we're going to grind this out.
9.11, discussion and consideration of a reimbursement agreement with Olympia Ranch for the construction of 6400 West and utility improvements on Herriman Boulevard.
So the location of this is 6400 West, north of Herriman Boulevard, and just a little south of Midas Creek, as shown on the map here. So the description of this project, about 1,900 feet of roadway. We mentioned earlier it's a little bit wider cross-section. It's our typical 80-foot, 3-lane cross-section, but with the power, overhead power corridor that runs along the west side of the road, there's an additional feet out to 115 feet. Inside of that easement, that'll be part of the Ridge Cove project, and so it'll interface with that project. Total cost for this is a little bit over $5.6 million. The funding source is our bond that we're planning to go out and do, and if there is a need, there will be some impact fees generated by this project that could be used there, or on another road we'll talk about next. Just for note, this right-of-way was either acquired per the agreement with LR for the Creek Ridge project. That has to be deeded to us, and then another piece of it from the last holdout project property that was acquired through corridor preservation of Salt Lake County funds that we applied for and received with the help of the developer. And another big note is the traffic signal at the intersection. We discussed earlier that there was some concerns about people crossing to the parks to the south across 126. This signal will be put in with this project, which will help with crossing that roadway, giving some better gaps and better visibility for the pedestrians. Details on this.
Like, just a question, just for perspective here. How long is that section of road that we're talking about?
It's getting built, or the?
Yeah, the section of road that we're talking about building.
1,900 feet.
1,900 feet costs $5.7 million without the land.
That's with park strips and sidewalk and street lights and some utilities in it. So yeah, but that's
For 1,900 feet.
It's about $2,965 a foot.
So put that in perspective a little bit, right? Take public safety out of the city's budget, what we actually have money to spend on projects, right? So what's left out, what's after operations, right? We generally have about $3 million to put towards capital projects each year. This is less than half a mile of a road.
And it's double what
And
we
it's
get in
double
taxes in
what
1 year.
we could use in an entire year. Now, is this building it, does this include building the bridge, or this is up, this is just up to it, right? So then the bridge on top of that, and then to build the next half, that's a big portion of some of that infrastructure money we've talked about that Ryan and his group have helped us get in coordination with this entire project is $3 million just for that bridge. And then another, 5+ to build the other side. So, yeah, I'm concerned about money.
Very good clarification. Roads are expensive, and they're getting more expensive every day. So the details of this agreement, Olympia obviously will be responsible for building the road, back a walk to back a walk, warranty the work for 1 year. No need for a 10% retainage on the payments. We'll just do an agreement within this agreement that they have to warrant the work for 1 year. City's obligations, we're going to repay the developer. This one, since it will be bond funds, will pay like a typical construction project where we'll give monthly disbursements on the funds as they do pay requests. We pay on actuals, so they'll have to submit. We have a form in the agreement in the back. They submit the pay request, and we process it, review it, and then pay it out. We have the not to exceed number, so if it does go higher than that, they'd have to come back and ask this body to increase the amount. Other details, initial grading has begun. Subgrade has been hauled in, as was mentioned earlier. Some of that work's begun. The developer is fronting that cost and hoping for reimbursement here. So they have carried that cost for a couple months already. We're expecting this road to be completed this fall. If not, we'd have to wait for paving dates, so it could be early 2026, but most likely this fall. And then staff recommends approval of this. Happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Is this coming out of the first bond money that we're going out to bond?
Yes.
Okay. And that's, I know we held off.
Haven't any better forecasts on that yet?
Yeah.
That's all I have.
We're still talking with our financial advisor. A bond will be issued. It really is determining the best option for us depending on what the market's doing.
Yep.
But we don't have a date yet.
Okay. So is the developer still going to move forward as their timeline? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, look for a motion.
Motion to approve a reimbursement agreement with Olympia Ranch LLC for the construction of 6400 West Roadway and utility improvements from Herriman Boulevard to Midas Creek, striking the wording regarding the 10% retainage.
Second?
Motion by Jared, second by Steve. We'll go Steve.
Yes.
Teddy.
Yes.
Jared.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. That motion carries. 912, discussion and consideration of an amended and restated reimbursement agreement for the construction of 126 South and 118 South between 6,000 West and 6,400 West.
All right, and as this comes up, this agreement is part of a previous agreement we had, so it's an amendment to reimburse the developer for improvements associated with the Teton Jackson development. Location is up in the north part of town, and as shown here. So the details on this one are, well, why do we need to amend it? One of the reasons is the original agreement was done in, I think, 2017, and so not all the improvements have been done since then, so costs have went up dramatically, as we just discussed, and so the developer's experiencing some sticker shock on that. And also, with the changes that we've done with Teton Ranch, removing lots and approving some other subdivisions, there was an opportunity to go through and address those revenue changes. We've also adopted a new impact fee in the interim. So part of this development was developed under the old impact fee, so we collected some of the old impact fees, and part was developed under the new. So as you can see here, this is the photo on the right is 126 South. The grayed out portion is the part that needs to be constructed still, and the non-grayed out part is the part that Herriman City constructed with the project a few years ago when roads were cheaper. 118 South is already completed, and we've already reimbursed a little over $815,000 for the work that's been done thus far. This breakdown shows how the impact fees are anticipated to be collected and what the amount would be. The total reimbursable amount being asked for here is 4.3 million, so we can show that it's going to generate enough funds. Some of the concerns that we do have is if there is a change in impact fees, that could lower the amount. So we need to make sure as the impact fee study's done that we are addressing that concern here. And then commercial uses, there's a lot of assumptions in commercial uses when you're looking at traffic impact fees. And so the assumptions made could change depending on how the commercial area finishes out its development. So details on this one, pretty much similar as the other one, except for the payout would not be monthly. It'll just be reimbursed quarterly based on the impact fees that are collected by the city for that quarter. And that's how we typically do our impact fee reimbursement agreements, is just reimbursed quarterly like that. So the original amount, as you can see, was 2.6 million, so we're proposing to increase it to 4.3 million. And yeah, that's the summary of that one. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Staff also recommends approval of this agreement.
Okay, I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve a restated reimbursement agreement with Olympia Ranch LLC for the construction of 126 South and 118 South between 6,000 West and 6,400 West.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Teddy. Steve?
Yes.
Teddy?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I vote yes, that motion carries. Final item, 9.13, discussion and consideration of a property exchange agreement with Olympia Ranch.
This is the one that ties everything together. So this is the exchange agreement for the properties shown generally circled in this map. So as we saw this map earlier, this explains how everything's going to transfer between the developer, LR, and LR is included in it because there's some triggers that those have to happen before other things happen. So city-owned properties, you see them listed here, see the acreages listed. Those will be transferred over to ranch, and then developer-owned parcels, they will transfer the athletic complex property in two separate exchanges. So the first, it's basically split in half, 28.448 acres in the first exchange, and then the second exchange after the soil remediation is completed. And then also one thing of note is the first right of refusal. So if the city chooses to not use any of those parcels for park or open space or whatever we want to use it for at that time, we have to offer it back to the developer at the fair market price at that time. And they have the choice to either buy it then or pass on it and let us sell it.
And that's for any municipal use, right? Or is it just restricted to park and open space use?
I can't remember if it was clarified in there. An attorney question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious, what if the city decided there was a
I think if it's not used as a park.
swimming pool?
As it's intended to tend.
It says sports facility, so it's intending that we do what we're talking about. It's in section 5 of that agreement.
If it says sports facility, I think that's broad enough to.
Yep.
Well, the problem is what if that doesn't happen? All this green space that we're trying to accumulate and preserve, we have to sell back and turn it all into houses and we lose all that. That's not.
Well, that's why I said.
That's not a good option.
That's why I said sports facility, right?
Or park.
Is fairly broad, right? So there's lots of different sports that can be had in a park.
There's no time frame on it, so it's just if the city decides at some time in the future, then you have to offer it in writing. But originally it had a time limit, and we had that was removed.
Ryan has a thought.
I don't love the idea that we could lose
Default on it and goes back.
lose green space down the road.
Maybe I can speak to that. Just the idea was that we had an existing contract with Richmond American Homes on this property. And one of the things that they didn't want to see is that if the city decided not to move forward, that the city would surplus it and then it would just go to a competitor, right? They're kind of doing us a favor by
If
stepping
we
out of the way.
decide to dispose of it.
That's what this says.
Okay,
Only if you guys determine we're not moving forward with this park, let's just call it generically a park, and we're just aren't going to use the property, and we're just going to sell it, then we just get the first chance to buy it back before. So it's not.
We can amend
And
it.
it's not at a lock. It's at fair market value. So it's not. We're not
Don't you
fixing the
dare.
price. Yeah.
Don't you dare.
I think we could add some language expanding the allowance of what it could be used for to include any municipal use, which could be a sports facility or a park or anything like that. So that way, yeah, we don't know what the future holds, but if it's a municipal use, then we go through the process. And this is very similar to UDOT's language, actually, is that anytime UDOT requires property under statute, they have to then go give the people that they buy the property from a right of first refusal. So it's not uncommon. It's more uncommon for municipalities to do something like this, but it's not uncommon when you look at how a state surpluses property. But yeah, I would suggest in your motion to expand the allowable uses that the city can provide on this property.
So, I mean, the intention is if we were to surplus it and sell it, so would it be more simple to just change the wording to that if we were to surplus the property?
Yeah, I
The
thought
attorney's
that's
popping up.
kind of, I think that's what it says.
When the attorneys pop up.
Let me throw out a hypothetical. Let's just say that only a portion of it was developed for soccer fields, and then somehow there's a swimming pool, and then maybe there's an arts facility, and maybe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, those
It's
are all
all
great
municipal
civic
uses,
uses,
though.
but they're not sports necessarily related per se.
Yeah,
So
so
I'd like to
civic-
expand that definition to include, municipal or civic uses, not restrict it.
That I'm okay with, yeah.
And,
I don't want it to be broad, because then with what you just said, it could be residential and whatever the city deems fit. So
Yeah.
that's,
And maybe, because we compromised on the telecommunication with that,
He says because we compromised on the telecommunications, we're gonna.
oh,
that there be, Richmond only has an interest in this for a few years, that up to the council as far as should there be a timeline is, so under statute, if we acquire property from a developer, I believe if it's within 10 years and we decide to surplus it, we actually are required to go back to the developer and offer them that property first. So I would say that same language in Utah code be included in this section, so that way, if it's past that time,
okay.
yeah, Richmond doesn't have that worry about competition, that sort of thing.
Okay. I don't love the 10-year thing, but that's okay. I guess I'll give it to you.
Telecommunication, right, telecommunication.
Well, that's okay. That's
Maybe
fine.
throw it in there, Todd.
I think we intend to try and build this as
For sure.
as actively as we can. I think this is just a protection. If we go through all that effort and realize it won't happen,
Yeah.
you're going to surplus it and then you'll sell it. The city will be financially whole because they'll sell it at that market rate at that time.
Maybe just as a note on that, because that's something that residents have brought up, well, what if this doesn't happen? Well, one, we've done all the planning that we can. We've done a feasibility study. We've done all of our homework. We can't progress in our planning of this facility until we secure the land, right? Once we secure the land, then we can continue with that planning process. I'm not a betting man, but
With the intention.
upwards of 99% sure that with all the interest we've had in the various funding sources that have come to us that are interested, pretty confident. Worst case scenario, if it doesn't happen, we have this piece of property that, yep, right of first refusal does not mean we give it back to them. It means we sell it at the market price at that time, right? And then the city has those funds to go forward. Having said that, it would be nuts for us not to put a good size municipal something in that
Yeah.
area regardless.
And that's the point I'm trying to get to, is that we do listen to the residents, right? Their concern is that we're sacrificing green space.
Right.
We're not trying to sacrifice, we're trying to consolidate,
And
right?
enhance.
And actually get enhanced green space. But what I don't want to do is make it so that we can undo the good we're trying to do by creating that space. Does that make sense?
100%.
Yep.
Right, this is yours, Steve.
So the.
The big
Hold on,
finale.
hold on.
The two changes is that changes made to the property exchange agreement shall be reviewed and approved by the city manager and the city attorney. To modify section 5 to allow expanded uses to include civic uses, maybe expand the definition of it being an athletic field, and to have a sunset clause to remove the right of first refusal after 10 years of the effective date.
Okay. Motion to approve resolution number R26-2025, authorizing the mayor to sign a property exchange agreement for the acquisition of property for a public athletic complex, or other definitions as we outlined, conditioned upon the approvals of items 9.1 through 9.10 and 9.13. Also amending to this motion the comments that Todd offered previously.
Second.
Steve's final motion and a second by Jared. That's sad, Steve. Okay. Jared,
Yes.
Teddy,
Yes.
and Steve.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, that motion carries.
I'm going to make a motion to adjourn, so that'll be my last
That'll be
one.
your last, that's a better motion, yes. I like that. So that does bring us to the end of our meeting. Again, we appreciate everybody's involvement and input tonight, sticking with us through this lengthy meeting. We do appreciate the input and everybody's involvement on this process. Next meeting's coming up. Are we having joint meetings still on the 30th?
Yes, you do have a joint meeting with the planning commission on next
6 o'clock?
Wednesday.
6 o'clock?
6
Okay, so
o'clock.
future joint council planning commission meeting, 6 o'clock next Wednesday. The planning commission meeting the following Wednesday, 7 o'clock. And our next city council meeting will be May 14th. There's a senior Sunday social tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock here at City Hall. And then the city, in coordination with Friends of Herriman, is doing this, the health and safety palooza on May 3rd from 9 to 11. That is, I was told Lifelight is coming, they are bringing their, Lone Peak is bringing their, hopefully, and then over 100 vendors at this event, including again, the helmets, bicycle helmets from Intermountain Health again, so phenomenal event. So May
Mr. Mayor,
3rd,
if I may ask,
9
did
to
the
11.
Real Day people call to get involved in this too? They said they were
Yes,
gonna
they
come do
did.
that?
Yep, they did. They've been connected, as well as
Great.
we met somebody as I was walking out of my presentation down there that wants to do.
The league?
Oh, swimming safety.
Oh, yeah,
The
that's
swim
right. The swim
safety.
safety stuff. Yeah, that's the other one.
I put my kid in a blue swimsuit, but they said that's not a good,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can't see him under the water. I never thought of that. So I think they're going to try to be here too. So it's going to be a big event, huge event. So May 3rd, 9 to 11 o'clock out front here at Crane Park. We've already done close, so with that, I will look for a motion to adjourn, and we bid you farewell, Steve. Appreciate everything.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn the city council meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.